Chapter 1103. I knew it, poor Li Xiang. Now he was worried about a mere 100,000 yuan. If others knew about this, they would probably laugh their heads off. It should be known that Li Xiang had never worried about money in his life. Whether it was when he was young or when he grew up, whether it was when he traveled for more than 2 years or when he was homeless, he had never been short of money. Not to mention that after he returned to that famous family, money became the cheapest thing. However, the current Li Xiang was Li Xiang. He had no money, he had no money. However, whether it was before or now, Li Xiang had never taken money seriously. He could choose not to help Ning, but he, who had no family except for his aunt, had already regarded Ning as a family member. So he felt that this family member was more important than the 100,000 yuan. Moreover, Ning was really too pitiful. He had such a father in a single-parent family. Li Xiang felt that this time he not only had to help Ning pay off the debt, but also had to help Ning solve the problem of his father, who was addicted to gambling. Otherwise, Ning would be dragged to death for the rest of his life. Since he couldn't borrow money from the lady boss, Li Xiang could only think of another way. Who knew that Gu Xining would appear at this time? This made Li Xiang instantly find a financial backer. Anyway, this fair, rich, and beautiful woman was not short of money. He could try to borrow money from her. Li Xiang couldn't guarantee that Gu Xining would lend him money. Although it was said that he owed her a favor, they had only known each other for less than a week after all. Gu Xining might be bored and use him to kill time. Once he asked to borrow money, she would immediately run away. But thinking about it, this was also good. If Gu Xining borrowed money, it would solve the problem of Ning. If Gu Xining didn't borrow money, it would also solve the problem of Gu Xining. He wouldn't be bothered by her in the future. When Li Xiang slowly walked to the door of the express delivery station, his colleagues at the express delivery station were all looking at him. Now if Li Xiang said that he and this fair, rich, and beautiful woman were just ordinary friends, probably no one would believe it. During the day, Gu Xining was youthful and beautiful. At this time, she was sexy and charming. She was wearing a black dress with slightly mature makeup. She was wearing a classic bumpo watch on her wrist and a Bulgari necklace on her neck. In addition, she was driving a Porsche sports car. Who would dare to covet such a fair, rich, and beautiful woman? Although Gu Xining was only 1.66 meters tall, she was considered tall among the girls in Chuanyu. Moreover, she was wearing high heels, which made her a good match for Li Xiang. Of course, age was not an issue. "Why are you here again?" Li Xiang said impatiently. Gu Xining was used to Li Xiang's attitude. She held Li Xiang's arm and said, "I'm here to pick up my boyfriend from work. I'll pick you up every day from now on. What do you think?" Li Xiang didn't feel embarrassed at all. It seemed that he was used to this kind of behavior, which surprised him a little. He had no choice but to say, "Who said you're my girlfriend?" Gu Xining curled her lips and said, "Humph, you'll be my boyfriend sooner or later. You should get used to it first, in case you can't get used to it later." Li Xiang really had no way to deal with Gu Xining, a fair, rich and beautiful woman who was even more shameless than him. It seemed that it was difficult for him to deal with Gu Xining with his current strategy. In that case, he could only carry out the strategy he had set up during the day. That was, beat her at her own game. "Okay, from today on, you're my girlfriend," Li Xiang said bluntly. Gu Xining knew that there must be something fishy about it, but she still shouted happily after hearing it. "Really, you can't go back on your word. Whoever goes back on his word is a puppy." Li Xiang didn't talk nonsense. He nodded with a smile and said that he didn't regret it. However, what he did next made Gu Xining stiffen on the spot. Because he put his hand on Gu Xining's perky but unscrupulously and said in amazement, "It feels so good." Gu Xining often went to the gym to exercise or do yoga, and so on. Her figure was not comparable to that of an ordinary girl. Moreover, she was wearing high heels today, which showed off her perfect figure. Any man would want to commit a crime against such a woman. She didn't expect that Li Xiang would suddenly be so direct, which was somewhat unexpected. Moreover, it was in broad daylight, and they were at the entrance of the express delivery station. There were so many people watching, and Li Xiang dared to do this. Gu Xining's face turned slightly red. However, she didn't think that Li Xiang was such a lascivious man. He must want to use this kind of trick to force her to leave. How could she give up so easily? Therefore, after coming to her senses, Gu Xining took advantage of the opportunity to put Li Xiang's perverted hand on her buttocks. She smiled and said, "There are so many people watching. How dare you? Hurry up and get in the car." Judging from Gu Xining's reaction, Li Xiang felt that this trick seemed to be very effective. It seemed that Gu Xining was still very conservative. This kind of body movement was already the limit. Of course, this was also Li Xiang's limit. If he continued like this, he would be a little unscrupulous. Li Xiang followed Gu Xining and got in the car obediently. After getting in the car, Gu Xining was very considerate and helped Li Xiang fasten the seatbelt. When Gu Xining fastened the seatbelt for Li Xiang, she naturally leaned forward and had intimate contact with Li Xiang. Li Xiang could directly see Gu Xining's charming breasts and smell the faint fragrance on Gu Xining's body. He didn't know whether it was perfume or body fragrance. This kind of contact made Li Xiang somewhat blush and his heart beat faster. He had never been like this with a woman before. This time, he was completely defeated. Seeing Li Xiang's reaction, Gu Xining couldn't help but smile secretly. She knew that Li Xiang must have used this trick just now. After a short interlude, Gu Xining drove the Porsche 911 away, leaving only a cloud of dust and sighs. In the express delivery station, the staff had already run out. They had seen clearly what had happened here just now. Someone couldn't help but sigh with emotion. "Old Gu, why don't I have such a fate?" It was really funny for Trump to say this. Another person said, "Li Xiang is really capable. I admire him. If I want to learn from him in the future, I don't want to work hard anymore." The crowd couldn't help laughing. In the car, Gu Xining asked with a smile, "Shall we go back to the bookstore first or go to eat first? Have you investigated me?" Li Xiang's face changed slightly. Gu Xining knew that Li Xiang was very sensitive, so she hurriedly explained, "I didn't investigate you. I just wanted to know more about you. Besides, it doesn't need to be investigated. All the workers at the express delivery station know about it." Li Xiang thought about it and agreed. Maybe he was too sensitive. He thought for a moment and told the truth. "I'm going back to the bookstore to cook. Ning hasn't eaten yet." Gu Xining didn't know Li Xiang before. The more she knew about him, the more she felt that this man was a mystery. He seemed to be like a bottomless black hole, which attracted her inexplicably. She couldn't help but want to figure out this black hole. She didn't think that this man was just a courier. What did he do before he was a courier? "It's a little late to cook now. Let's find a place to eat and then pack some for her," Gu Xining arranged. In fact, she also wanted to meet the girl named Ning, who was very similar to her name. It was said that she was also a great beauty, which made Gu Xining feel a little pressured. What was the relationship between Li Xiang and Ning? Although Li Xiang agreed with Gu Xining, he still made it difficult for her and said, "Ordinary people like us can easily find a roadside stall to eat and keep warm. You, a lady from a rich family, must go to a high-end restaurant. Although you are my girlfriend now, I don't have the money to treat you to a meal." Ha! Hearing Li Xiang's words, Gu Xining couldn't help laughing and said, "Am I such a woman in your heart?" Li Xiang asked in reply, "Aren't you?" "Of course not. My favorite places are those small restaurants. You have only been in Chengdu for 2 months, so you definitely haven't enjoyed the delicious food in Chengdu. In the future, let me take you to enjoy your time," Gu Xining said proudly. Li Xiang usually liked to eat, especially in these small restaurants. He had eaten all the delicious food nearby. Gu Xining's words were very tempting to Li Xiang. After all, when he was in the Sichuan Tibet town, his aunt only allowed him to eat light food. It was not until he arrived in Chengdu that he began to break the rule. Li Xiang said cheekily, "Then take me there another day." In the end, Li Xiang and Gu Xining randomly chose a noodle restaurant. Gu Xining only ate 1 or 2 noodles and was not finished yet, while Li Xiang ate 4 or 2 noodles. In the end, Gu Xining gave all her leftover noodles to Li Xiang, saying that it should not be wasted. After the meal, when they got on the car, Li Xiang finally couldn't help but say, "By the way, I want you to do me a favor." "Of course, you can choose not to help." Gu Xining looked at Li Xiang with a puzzled face and said with a smile, "Tell me what it is first. I may not be able to help you, but I will try my best." "It's not a big deal. I just want you to lend me some money," Li Xiang said cheekily. The look in Gu Xining's eyes changed slightly. It seemed that she was still very sensitive to the word money. Since she was a child, she had known too many people who came for her family's money. Even many men who chased after her also came for her family's background. Therefore, she had a natural resistance to this kind of people. However, she felt that Li Xiang was not such a person. "Borrow so much money, what do you want?" Gu Xining said coldly. Li Xiang replied honestly, 100,000. "Don't ask me what I want. Otherwise, I won't lend it to you. I will give it to you by the end of the year at the latest." 100,000? Gu Xining had thought that he would borrow a lot of money. Her friends always asked for hundreds of thousands or even millions of yuan. She had never heard of the number 100,000. It might be the amount she sometimes spent in one night. Li Xiang said a little embarrassedly, "Is it too much?" "It doesn't matter. 100,000 is okay. When do you want it? Should I transfer it to you or give you cash?" Gu Xining said without thinking much. Li Xiang didn't expect that Gu Xining would agree so quickly. He was a little surprised and said, "You agreed so quickly? Are you afraid that I won't pay you back?" "I'm not afraid. If you don't pay me back, I will sell you. Anyway, I know where you live and work," Gu Xining said coldly on purpose. Li Xiang said very seriously, "Don't worry, I will pay you back. I am not the kind of person who owes money and doesn't pay back. I will also give you an IOU. You can also calculate the interest. I will give it to you by the end of the year at the latest. You can directly transfer it to my bank card." "Then give me your bank card number. I will transfer it to you now," Gu Xining said with a smile. Sometimes she felt that this uncle was quite interesting. He was more innocent than those young people. But sometimes she felt that this uncle was really too experienced, more experienced than his father and uncles. What kind of person was he on earth? After Li Xiang told Gu Xining his bank card number, Gu Xining immediately transferred the money to Li Xiang in front of him. When he received the message from the bank, Li Xiang felt it was a little unbelievable. He didn't expect that Gu Xining would really lend him money. He thought that Gu Xining would dislike him because of this. He didn't expect that she would really lend him money. It seemed that he owed Gu Xining a favor. He couldn't be so rude to her in the future. Just when Li Xiang was in a daze, Gu Xining bit her lip and said, "From today on, you are my sugar daddy. This 100,000 is my sugar daddy's fee. Do you feel that you have reached the peak of your life?" "You are the sugar daddy," Li Xiang replied angrily. Gu Xining couldn't help laughing. She was afraid that Li Xiang would be angry. She hurriedly said, "I am teasing you. You are so stingy." Li Xiang was too lazy to pay attention to this mischievous fair, rich and beautiful girl. He really didn't know what she was thinking all day. At this time, Gu Xining suddenly said, "Since I have done you a favor, you have to do me a favor too. And you can't refuse. What do you think?" "I knew it." Hearing this, Li Xiang knew that Gu Xining would never lend him money so simply. FPZW. Chapter 1104. Gu Xining knew Li Xiang well enough. Of course, she only knew the current Li Xiang. He didn't even know the former Li Xiang, so how could Gu Xining know him? However, Li Xiang didn't know Gu Xining at all, whether it was the current Gu Xining or the former Gu Xining. Of course, he had only known Gu Xining for a few days and had no interest in getting to know her. What about the future? Li Xiang was a little surprised and touched that Gu Xining would lend him money. After all, they had just known each other for a short time. Maybe 100,000 yuan was nothing to Gu Xining. Who knew if Gu Xining was spending money to buy happiness? However, when he heard that Gu Xining wanted to help him, Li Xiang was still cautious. There must be something wrong if something was abnormal. This was what his aunt had told him. It was dark and slippery, and people's hearts were complicated. He didn't dare to trust Gu Xining easily. After all, any normal person could understand that it was impossible for Li Xiang and Gu Xining to have any interaction. Even if Gu Xining lacked a boyfriend, she would never find a middle-aged single dog like Li Xiang, who had everything he wanted and couldn't do anything. What do you want to help me with first? I really don't know what I can do for you. If I can't help you, I'll return the 100,000 yuan to you, Li Xiang said very carefully. He thought that Gu Xining lent him money to ask for his help. Gu Xining let out a long sigh and said, "Alas, uncle, why are you so narrow-minded? I just want you to help me with an ordinary thing. Even if you don't want to help me, it's another thing for me to lend you money. This is a different thing." Was it really like that? Li Xiang said thoughtfully. Then what do you want to help me with? Don't think too much. I just want you to accompany me to a friend's party tonight. Just go for a walk. After all, you are my boyfriend now, Gu Xining said honestly. Hearing this, Li Xiang was finally relieved. He smiled and said, "I see. But I still have to go to the bar to sing." Gu Xining knew that Li Xiang had agreed. She was very happy and smiled. Tonight's matter was finally settled. She didn't dare to tell Li Xiang not to go to the bar to sing. Instead, she said, "I'll wait for you to get off work." The two sides finally reached a consensus on two matters, each taking what they needed and each seeking what they could get. When the Porsche 911 stopped in front of the bookstore, Ah Ning, who was wearing an apron and had a ponytail, was playing with Zhizhia. She saw a sports car suddenly stopped in front of the bookstore and thought that someone had come to buy flowers. After all, there were still many rich people in Chengdu, and the streets were full of all kinds of sports cars. But what she didn't expect was that it was Li Xiang who got out of the Porsche. Before Ning could come back to her senses, she saw another beautiful woman get out of the Porsche. Obviously, this Porsche belonged to this beautiful woman. "Brother Li Xiang, why are you?" Ning saw that the beauty who came down with Li Xiang was very beautiful, which made her feel a little ashamed and slightly nervous. Li Xiang said softly, "You haven't eaten yet, right? I won't cook for you today. I brought you some noodles." "Thank you, Brother Li Xiang," Ning said obediently. At this time, Gu Xining had already walked in front of Ning. She took the initiative to stretch out her hand and said, "You must be Ning. I am Li Xiang's girlfriend. My name is Gu Xining. Nice to meet you." "Girlfriend?" Hearing this, Ning was a little confused. Li Xiang couldn't explain anything, so he had to change the topic and said, "How's business today?" "It's not bad. There are more people buying flowers, and there are also several people buying books." Speaking of business, Ning was very happy. Gu Xining still didn't know the relationship between Ning and Li Xiang. After all, a man like Li Xiang could easily attract little girls like them. Maybe this Ning also liked Li Xiang. She didn't take the initiative to provoke Ning to declare her sovereignty. Instead, she squatted on the ground and played with Squeak. Taking this opportunity, Ning ran in with Li Xiang and said, "Brother Li Xiang, who is she? Is she really your girlfriend?" Somehow, when she heard that the beautiful woman said that she was Li Xiang's girlfriend, Ning felt an inexplicable sense of loss in her heart. So she was eager to know what was going on. At this time, Li Xiang explained, "She is just a friend of mine. Don't think too much about it. She is like this. I am used to it." In fact, Ning still wanted to ask more questions. For example, she had never seen this beautiful woman named Gu Xining before, nor had she heard from Li Xiang that he had such a friend. Why did she appear just after her aunt left? However, after all, she was not her aunt, so it was not appropriate for her to continue to ask more questions. "Oh, that's good. Otherwise, I will complain to my aunt," Ning pouted and said. At this time, Gu Xining had already come in and looked around the bookstore. The name of the store was quite interesting. She didn't know who gave it the name Fragrance of Books, Fragrance of Tea, and Fragrance of Flowers. The bookstore was filled with all kinds of books. Even the ground was stacked with books of all kinds. It was obvious that this was a well-organized bookstore. The style of the bookstore was also antique. It was a bit like a private library in ancient times. Fragrance of flowers. There were all kinds of flowers and plants inside and outside the bookstore. Before entering the bookstore, she could smell all kinds of flowers. This kind of bookstore was probably the dream of every girl. It also reminded her of her childhood dream, which seemed to be such a life. As for the fragrance of tea, she didn't know. When Li Xiang came out, Gu Xining asked directly, "Why didn't I see my aunt?" Li Xiang really wanted to ask, "You even know my aunt, what else do you not know?" Gu Xining was most curious about Li Xiang's aunt. It was said that she was a very beautiful and stunning woman. Gu Xining really wanted to know how beautiful she was. After all, Chengdu had never been short of beautiful women. "Oh, my aunt has gone far away," Li Xiang said casually. Alas, Gu Xining felt a little pity. At this time, a few guests came to the bookstore. Ning was busy greeting the guests. Li Xiang was upstairs making a phone call. Gu Xining had nothing to do, so she strolled around the bookstore. She also found a few books that were quite interesting, and was ready to take them away when she left. When it was almost time, Li Xiang came downstairs with his guitar on his back. Gu Xining quickly walked over and asked, "Li Xiang, can we go now?" Li Xiang nodded, then said goodbye to Ning and left with Gu Xining in the car. After watching them leave, Ning felt somewhat upset in her heart. It was as if her beloved toy had been taken away, and she was still hesitating whether to tell her aunt or not. But after that, she felt relieved. What was she thinking? Li Xiang was just her brother, nothing more. After Li Xiang came to Chengdu, he had hardly been to anywhere. His usual life track was around the neighborhood, but recently there was the addition of Juyan Bridge. A few days ago, he rode his beloved small motorcycle to Juyan Bridge, but today he was sitting in a Porsche sports car worth millions. Li Xiang was somewhat not used to it. He almost didn't talk to Gu Xining, and had been looking at the outside world through the car window. The bustling city, the hurried people, the different status, the different feelings. At this moment, Li Xiang's heart was very complicated. It seemed that this feeling was very familiar. Those broken memories began to appear again. His eyes were slightly sad, and he was completely immersed in his own world, as if he had long forgotten that Gu Xining was beside him. What kind of person was I in the past? Li Xiang finally began to seriously reflect on this question. Gu Xining didn't hear it clearly. She frowned and said, "Li Xiang, what did you say?" At this time, Li Xiang came to his senses. He smiled and shook his head, saying that he didn't say anything. It just so happened that they had arrived at the bar street of Juyan Bridge. Gu Xining randomly found a parking space, parked the car, and then accompanied Li Xiang to the bar. Li Xiang walked in the front with his guitar on his back, and Gu Xining followed closely behind him. She liked Li Xiang's back, as if it was his back that attracted her that night. It wasn't that she had never met a resident singer like Li Xiang, but that he was more like a wandering poet than a resident singer. Gu Xining had never met such a man. He was either a domineering and arrogant hedonistic son, a shrewd and scheming son, or a man with great potential who had sunk his heart to the bottom of the valley and worked hard silently. As for those older men, she had no interest in them at all. After all, they belonged to the level of her father's generation. Li Xiang, Gu Xining shouted, and then quickly caught up with Li Xiang, tightly holding his arm, as if at this moment she was really Li Xiang's girlfriend. Life, passers-by, guitar, beauty. Maybe this kind of life was what every wandering singer wanted, and it was also the life that others envied. Unfortunately, it was not destined to be Li Xiang's life. When they arrived at the bar, everyone's eyes widened when they saw Li Xiang and Gu Xining walking in. They all knew that this beauty would come to listen to Li Xiang's singing these days, but they didn't expect that Li Xiang would win her heart so quickly. Who wouldn't want such a beauty? As expected, a man chasing a woman was separated by a mountain, and a woman chasing a man was separated by a layer of gauze. When Brother Chow saw this, his eyes almost popped out, but because Gu Xining was by his side, he didn't say anything. He just winked at Li Xiang to show him that he was really good, and then said, "Li Xiang, hurry up and get ready. I'll wait for you downstairs," Gu Xining said with a smile. She randomly found a booth, ordered a fruit plate and a glass of juice, and then waited quietly for Li Xiang. Li Xiang began to sing, but many people in the bar were actually paying attention to Gu Xining, but Gu Xining's eyes were all on Li Xiang. When Li Xiang was singing, Gu Xining's eyes seemed to be shining. Li Xiang sang several folk songs in a row. When he was about to finish, he suddenly looked at Gu Xining, who was sitting by the window, and said, "Song Dongya Lilian." Li Xiang adjusted his breathing and began to play the guitar. After a simple rhythm, he began to sing softly. She found that the lonely man was ready to rise. So she prayed. At dusk, she turned her head and heard sad sobs. The tone of this song was very low and hoarse, which was especially suitable for Li Xiang's voice. Moreover, Li Xiang's temperament was full of stories, which really made people feel intoxicated. But when Li Xiang sang today, it was almost the same as yesterday. There were all kinds of memory fragments floating in his mind. Even the scene of him singing was somewhat familiar. It was as if there was a girl who accompanied him down there, quietly listening to him sing, but not as ferociously as yesterday. At the end of the song, the lyrics were, "Far away from here, there's a beach. The lonely man is on the sea, holding the sail. If you see him, return to the coast. Please tell him your name, my name. Lilian." Li Xiang deliberately changed the last name to Gu Xining. Of course, Gu Xining had heard this song. When Li Xiang called out her name at the end, Gu Xining was stunned for a few seconds before she came to her senses. Then she showed a bright smile and smiled very happily. It was a little romantic and a little touching. It was so simple. However, such a small trick was sneered at by other guests. These resident singers just loved to flirt with girls in this way. How vulgar. Humph. After the song, Li Xiang just came down and Gu Xining ran to him and said, "Thank you." Li Xiang subconsciously touched her hair and said, "As long as you're happy." This ambiguous gesture made Gu Xining very embarrassed, and she lowered her head and blushed. Li Xiang's little tricks were getting more and more frequent, but Gu Xining seemed to enjoy it. After coming out of the bar, Li Xiang put the guitar into Gu Xining's car and said lightly, "Where to now?" Gu Xining said casually, "Space." On the way, Gu Xining explained that her best friend had a birthday party at Space tonight. Because there were two men chasing after her, she didn't go for dinner, but now she had to go. Therefore, she took Li Xiang with her. After all, Li Xiang was her boyfriend. At that time, the boys chasing after her would have no other ideas. Secondly, she wanted to take Li Xiang to meet her friend. Li Xiang asked deliberately, "Did you plan to use me as a gun? You think too much. I'm not a scheming girl. We'll go there for a walk and then we'll leave." Gu Xining explained with a smile. Li Xiang didn't say much. Anyway, his aunt was going far away today. It was okay for him to go back a little later, as long as he didn't drink. After all, this was what his aunt had told him before he left. Otherwise, he would definitely be scolded when he came back. Space was currently one of the best nightclubs in Chengdu. Who knew how many second-generation rich kids came to visit because of its reputation? Needless to say, their spending power naturally went without saying. Not to mention the environment and atmosphere inside, just the number of beautiful women was enough to dazzle one's eyes. Whether it was a man or a woman, as long as they had money, they would naturally be willing to enjoy life. This kind of place was the most suitable for spending money. Moreover, it was a city with high spending power like Chengdu. God knew how many rich second generations, fair, rich, and beautiful women came here to party every night. Space was near the TV tower. In addition to Space, there were several other nightclubs here. Therefore, every night it was extremely lively. The streets were full of handsome men and beautiful women, full of the smell of hormones. When Gu Xining brought Li Xiang here, Gu Xining's friends were already inside. They all knew that Gu Xining had a new boyfriend, so they all wanted to see the real face of this big boss who could win Gu Xining's heart. After all, the Gu family was considered to be influential in Chengdu. Moreover, the Gu family was currently experiencing a power struggle late at night, Beidei. In a holiday villa near the sea, an old man in his twilight years was lying on the bed, struggling at death's door. However, the old man's eyes were full of vigor. The past 2 years of life had exhausted him and also consumed the last of the old man's energy. However, the old man was still struggling to hold on, unwilling to die like this. Because he didn't want to lose, and he didn't want to lose so completely. Although the outcome had been decided, and he had paid a heavy price in this battle, his interest groups had almost all lost power, and some people had even betrayed them. These were all within his expectations. When he did that thing, he knew what price he would have to pay. However, he didn't get the result he wanted. Since the price had been paid, he had to get the result he wanted. So what if he had to wait for 3 years? After all, he already had news. Chapter 1105. Depending on your own ability in Beidei, a summer resort. In ancient times, Qin Shi Huang traveled to the east to seek longevity. Today it was a tourist attraction. Even leaders would come here for a vacation every year. That old man, who was past his prime, was Senior Long, who had wanted to kill Qin Shing. 3 years later, this old man had reached the end of his life. His life could be called a legend. He had been fighting all his life. Even when he was old, he still wanted to fight for the last time. He had only lost a few times in his life. Before he died, he did not want to lose again. Elder Long did not lie on the sickbed. Although he was about to die, he did not want to die in such a humiliating way. The biggest regret in his life was that he could not send old Master Qin to hell with his own hand. However, he had also made the Qin family pay a heavy price. This time, although he had sent Qin Chang'an to prison, no matter how much trouble the Qin family made, Qin Chang'an would stay in there for a long time. He had paid a heavy price for that. However, what he wanted most was to end the Qin family. Therefore, if Qin Shing did not die, he would not be able to rest in peace. Last time, in order to kill Qin Shing, it could be said that he made the whole interest group pay a heavy price. The attacks of the Zhu family and the Song family finally made him tired of dealing with them and had no choice but to retreat. But even so, he did not give up. Even if this interest group was on the verge of falling apart, he still wanted to make this move. He could only move forward. He could not turn back. After coughing a few times, Elder Long said with difficulty, "Don't you all want this position?" There were 3 men sitting in front of Elder Long's window. They were the successors that Elder Long had carefully cultivated. He had already chosen one of them, but this time, he completely changed his mind. The 3 men, who were young but had different temperaments, did not say anything. The expressions on their faces were different. No one knew what they were thinking. I'll tell you what the result will be. The result is that whoever can kill Qin Shing will take over the position. I'll bear all the responsibility. You can enjoy your wealth. It's that simple. Elder Long's eyes were like torches. When he said this, his tone was full of murderous intent. Still, no one spoke. Perhaps everyone was weighing their own strength, or perhaps they were weighing the pros and cons. Force me to abdicate. Do you think you can do that? My position isn't that easy to sit on. Let's all rely on our own strength. Elder Long's words were full of disdain. He didn't take these successors seriously at all. He really wasn't dead. If he wasn't dead, then he had the final say in this group. A lame middle-aged man trembled and said, "Old master, that's not what we meant. We're just here to see you." "Don't say that to Ghost. You can go now. I'll wait for your news." Elder Long waved his hand and said, "I'll take all the responsibility." Hearing this, the men got up and left Old Master Long's room obediently. Who didn't want to be in this position? Unfortunately, Old Master Long didn't die. They really didn't have the strength to send Old Master Long to hell. Then, they could only think of a way to kill Qin Haodong. Anyway, Old Master Long said that he would bear all the responsibilities. Elder Master Lon. Chengdu's night, the Lon town, time, he Ching, on Lon, on Master town, La Ching on Tian Chen Tian Man Tian in time, Master Feng, he Do and Tian. Every night, it was a gathering place for young people. Even at 3 or 4 o'clock in the morning, it was still very lively. Therefore, when Gu Xining and Li Xiang arrived here, almost all the nightclubs were full. Although Li Xiang had been in Chengdu for more than 2 months, he had never been to a nightclub like this before. He had always been around the surrounding areas of the living area. "There are so many people here." Li Xiang sighed. It was not less than Juyan Bridge. Most importantly, there were more young people here. There were handsome men and beautiful women everywhere. What Li Xiang didn't know was that if he wanted to see where the top beauties of Chengdu were, he would definitely come to the TV tower at night. At that time, he would know how high the quality of the beauties of Chengdu were. Gu Xining held Li Xiang's arm and explained with a smile, "This is the busiest place in Chengdu now, but I only come here occasionally. They are all my friends who insist on coming. I prefer to go to Juyan Bridge to listen to music. Maybe because of my parents' influence I don't like noisy places." "I didn't ask you," Li Xiang said casually. Hearing this, Gu Xining was angry and amused at the same time. She glared at Li Xiang, but she still liked the feeling of being with Li Xiang. It seemed that there was a natural magic that made her calm down. Maybe this was the charm of this man to her. "What about you? Have you ever been to a nightclub before?" Gu Xining asked curiously. Li Xiang thought for a moment and said self-mockingly, "I don't know about the past. Maybe I have been there, maybe I haven't. All I can remember are the things that happened in the past few years. So you asked me. In fact, I also want to know." Haha. "You can only remember the things that happened in the past few years? What do you mean?" Gu Xining's eyes widened. She did not understand what Li Xiang meant. Li Xiang said honestly, "My aunt said that I was seriously injured 3 years ago. After I woke up, I forgot everything before, so I can only remember the things that happened in the past 3 years. I asked my aunt about my past, but she never told me. She also told me not to ask about it." After listening to Li Xiang's words, Gu Xining was already stunned. She was so shocked that she did not know what to say. Why did this kind of plot in movies and TV dramas suddenly appear? "You mean you lost your memory? Really? Is this a trick you made up to fool me?" Gu Xining had never experienced this kind of thing before. She said subconsciously. Li Xiang was a little funny and said, "I don't need to lie to you. Just take it that I am lying to you." Gu Xining did not say anything. It was really unbelievable. But thinking of the suspicious points about this man, it seemed that it could be explained. She had always felt that a man like Li Xiang, who had temperament and vicissitudes of life, was definitely not ordinary. How could he be a courier and a resident singer? If Li Xiang really lost his memory, what did Li Xiang do in the past? At this time, they had already walked to the door of space. Gu Xining's best friend had already come out to wait for them. Seeing Gu Xining and Li Xiang coming over, she quickly waved and smiled and said, "Cici, over here." Gu Xining walked over and hugged her best friend warmly. "Are they all here?" "They arrived a long time ago. They are just waiting for you." Gu Xining's best friend smiled and said. Indeed, there were beautiful women around beautiful women, but she followed closely behind and glanced at Li Xiang. "Did you really win this uncle's heart?" Gu Xining said proudly. "What do you think? I am Gu Xining. I will definitely not miss what I want." "That's true. Who asked our Cici to be so charming?" Her best friend smiled and said. At this time, Gu Xining smiled and introduced her best friend to Li Xiang. Li Xiang had met Gu Xining's best friend before, but he did not know what her name was. Only today did he know that her name was Sun Tian. She should also be a fair, rich, and beautiful woman. After all, only in this way could he really play with Gu Xining. After the introduction, Sun Tian pulled Gu Xining into the nightclub. Li Xiang followed closely behind them. Before they entered the nightclub, they could already hear the loud music from afar. Li Xiang had only seen nightclubs on TV, but had never experienced one in person. Gu Xining was afraid that Li Xiang would not be used to it, so she held Li Xiang's hand tightly, which made Li Xiang feel somewhat touched. Not long after, Li Xiang followed them into space. At this time, Li Xiang realized how noisy and lively it was inside. The dim environment was accompanied by a large screen and colorful lights, which made people a little dazzled and difficult to adapt to. The loud music blasted one's brain and made one dizzy. There were men and women exuding the smell of hormones and alcohol everywhere. All kinds of smells filled the place, making people a little fascinated. On the stage, the DJ worked hard to drive the rhythm of the whole audience. On the dance floor, the men and women twisted their bodies to their heart's content to follow the rhythm. In the booth, the men and women put their arms around each other's shoulders and drank wine. No one knew what the relationship between them was. Whether it was on the dance floor, the booth, or the aisle, there were people coming and going everywhere. There were countless handsome men and beautiful women. However, for Li Xiang, such an environment was too easy for him to get lost. However, the more he walked forward, more and more memory fragments broke out in Li Xiang's mind. It seemed that the environment in his mind was also the same, and there were people who gradually became familiar to him, but he could not remember who they were. Could it be that he had been to such a place before? Reality, memory, these two different environments bombarded Li Xiang, making him feel like he had a split personality. Finally, they arrived at the booth where Gu Xining's best friend was sitting. Their booth was one of the largest in the hall. At this time, there were already 6 or 7 handsome men and beautiful women sitting there. They were all about the same age as Gu Xining and Sun Tian, and the one who was celebrating her birthday tonight was one of them. When Li Xiang and Gu Xining appeared, everyone's attention was focused on them. Most of the people's attention was on Li Xiang, who was dressed simply beside Gu Xining. They even forgot about the game that was in progress. Gu Xining greeted her best friend sweetly and said, "Happy birthday, Lele. This is your birthday present." "Thank you, my baby." The long-legged beauty named Lele took the birthday present and said happily. Then she asked Gu Xining and Li Xiang to sit next to her. Obviously, Gu Xining had a relatively high status in this group. Other than Li Xiang, there were 3 other men present. They were already familiar with these beauties. 2 of them had always had designs on Gu Xining, but they had never been able to woo her. It was just that recently, they had kept their distance from Gu Xining and had never taken the initiative to play with Gu Xining. Now, they were staring at Li Xiang with a very playful gaze. Lele hugged Gu Xining and said, Cece, don't you want to introduce the man beside you? Lei Lei had not met Li Xiang yet, but she had heard Gu Xining mention him to her. She really didn't know what to do with Gu Xining and didn't know what she was thinking. She just wanted Li Xiang to integrate into this group. Otherwise, it would be embarrassing if they didn't know each other. Gu Xining introduced him confidently, "This is my boyfriend." To everyone's surprise, they were not very surprised. Maybe they had already seen it, or maybe the news had already spread like wildfire. Come on, let's celebrate Cece's finding a boyfriend. Let's drink and get drunk tonight. It was already the second round of Lei Lei's drinking. She was a little dizzy and shouted. Everyone filled each other's glasses with wine, but Li Xiang didn't drink. This made the others a little dissatisfied. At this time, Gu Xining hurriedly explained that Li Xiang was not in good health recently and couldn't drink. She would drink with them another day. Then they let Li Xiang go and didn't take the initiative to persuade Li Xiang to drink. After all, Gu Xining was here. Since Li Xiang didn't drink, they could only ask Gu Xining to drink. Gu Xining was embarrassed and couldn't refuse them. After all, they were all friends. In particular, the three men had been accustomed to Gu Xining's drinking, which made Li Xiang slightly frown. He thought that it would be difficult for Gu Xining to keep drinking. After staying for less than half an hour, Li Xiang really couldn't stand this environment, so he said that he wanted to go to the bathroom. It just so happened that he could take a break. Gu Xining was afraid that Li Xiang didn't know the way. Originally, she wanted to take Li Xiang there. However, one of the handsome men, who had a buzz cut and was dressed in fashionable brand, took the initiative to go with Li Xiang. Lei Lei also pulled Gu Xining to drink, so Gu Xining had no choice. On the way from the booth to the bathroom, Li Xiang didn't say anything to the handsome man who was a little bad. However, when he came out of the bathroom, the handsome man blocked his way. Li Xiang's face changed slightly. He didn't know what this handsome man meant. At this time, the handsome man said slowly, "Buddy, I don't know who you are, and I don't care about your background. But I advise you out of kindness. If you don't want to die too quickly, you should stay away from Gu Xining. You shouldn't provoke her." Hearing the handsome man's words, Li Xiang seemed to have guessed it and said subconsciously, "Are you threatening me?" Unexpectedly, the handsome man sneered and said, "I'm not threatening you, and I'm not interested in threatening you. After all, I'm not your rival in love or your enemy. I'm just advising you out of kindness. If you don't listen to me, just forget what I said." Ha! After saying these words, the handsome man turned around and left directly. Li Xiang was lost in thought. What did he mean? Climax. Chapter 1106. Investigate him. He was young and rich, had a superior family background, and was handsome. How could such a young man be short of girlfriends? Li Xiang already knew that this handsome man was called Liangzhi. As for what he did, he didn't know. However, it seemed that he had a good relationship with Gu Xining, and his family background should be similar. However, he seldom talked to the other two men, and there was some disdain in his eyes. However, Li Xiang didn't expect that Liangzhi would say these words to him. What did these words mean? He asked him to stay away from Gu Xining. Could it be that he had angered the two rivals in love, and they were going to hurt him or something? Or did it mean something else? Before Li Xiang continued to ask, Liangzhi had already left. Li Xiang pondered for a while. It seemed that his aunt had said that beauty was always a source of trouble. If there was really any trouble, he should stay away from Gu Xining. However, Li Xiang didn't have this kind of character. He could leave naturally if he wasn't interested in Gu Xining, but if someone forced him to leave, he wouldn't accept it. He would just deal with it as it came. He would see what was going on first. After all, his relationship with Gu Xining hadn't reached that stage yet. When Li Xiang returned to the booth, the other two so-called rivals in love were forcing Gu Xining to drink, and there were also two beautiful women fanning the flames. He didn't know what Lulu was doing. Sun Tian wanted to help Gu Xining, but others didn't listen to her at all. As for Liang Zhe, he had been sitting on the sidelines and watching the fun. Anyway, it had nothing to do with him. Why should he stand up for Gu Xining? At this time, Li Xiang came back. He couldn't stand it when he saw Gu Xining being bullied like this. After all, he knew that Gu Xining didn't want to drink. She just came to stay for a while because of her pride. So he directly walked over to stop Gu Xining and said, "Stop drinking. You're already drunk. Who do you think you are? Who do you think you are?" One of the rich second generation said arrogantly, not taking Li Xiang seriously at all. Gu Xining didn't want the atmosphere to be awkward, nor did she want to see Li Xiang suffer losses. She said lightly, "I'm fine. Don't worry." "Tut, tut, tut, we know Cece's capacity for liquor. You don't need to worry about her." A fair-skinned, rich, beautiful woman who did not have a good relationship with Gu Xining said angrily. She had always been fighting with Gu Xining, and she was the one who started the war just now. The rich second generation who first ridiculed Li Xiang was called Feng Jinglong. He was considered to be a little famous rich second generation in Chengdu. He often drove a few supercars and caused havoc on the street. It was said that his family had a good relationship with a few big shots of the underground world in Sichuan and Chongqing. He had been bitterly chasing after Gu Xining, but Gu Xining simply did not like him. Everyone knew about this. Because of this, Feng Jinglong had become a joke in this small circle. Someone bet that if he managed to win Gu Xining's heart, they would give him a Koenigsegg. It was obvious how difficult it was. When Feng Jinglong saw Li Xiang, he didn't take Li Xiang seriously at all. He even suspected that this man was an actor hired by Gu Xining to make him give up, because he didn't think that Gu Xining would find such a boyfriend. Besides, the Gu family had just been through an accident. If Gu Xining randomly found a boyfriend, it would be challenging the bottom line of the Gu family. It's fine if Cece doesn't drink, but are you going to drink it for her? Feng Jinglong looked at Li Xiang provocatively. Hearing this, Gu Xining frowned and said, "Did I say that I won't drink? He can't drink, do you need to force him?" After saying that, Gu Xining directly picked up the wine glass on the table and was about to drink the 3 glasses of wine on the table. At this time, Li Xiang stopped Gu Xining. He held Gu Xining's wrist and took the wine glass unhurriedly. He said, "I'll drink her wine tonight. You can drink however you want." Before Gu Xining could react, Li Xiang picked up the wine glass and drank it in one gulp. Then he raised his head and drank the other 2 glasses, not giving anyone a chance at all. Gu Xining was stunned because Li Xiang said that he didn't drink, and his aunt never allowed him to drink. She also asked the people in the bar, and they also said that Li Xiang had never drunk in the bar, so Gu Xining believed it without a doubt. She didn't expect that Li Xiang would break the rule for her tonight. Could it be that Li Xiang lied to her when he said that he didn't drink? "Didn't you say that you can't drink? I thought you could pretend for a long time." Another rival in love named Xiao Kai snorted. He didn't say much and just watched Feng Jinglong's performance. It was only at this time that he stood out. However, judging from Gu Xining's reaction just now, he seemed to have some doubts about the relationship between Li Xiang and Gu Xining. But it was also possible that they were friends. No matter who he was, tonight's goal was to get Li Xiang drunk. Therefore, the following scene was very simple. Gu Xining almost didn't drink a single drop of alcohol. All her alcohol was drunk by Li Xiang, while Feng Jinglong and Xiao Kai were against Li Xiang. Gu Xining wanted to drink for Li Xiang, but Li Xiang wouldn't let her. When Lei came back and saw this scene, she was a little shocked. How could Li Xiang, who didn't drink, get drunk like this? It seemed that the hero saved the beauty. She had already guessed what would happen tonight. Who asked Cece to bring her boyfriend along? There were 2 men who liked Cece. She could calm Xiao Kai down, but Feng Jinglong definitely couldn't. Just as she expected, she was right. It seemed that Li Xiang was going to suffer tonight. However, Gu Xining didn't give them a chance to completely defeat Li Xiang. When Lei came back, Gu Xining directly said to Lei, I still have something to do. I have to go first. You guys continue to have fun. Gu Xining had been waiting for Lei. After all, it was Lei's birthday tonight. If she left without saying goodbye, Lei would definitely be unhappy. Of course, Lei knew what Gu Xining meant. She said in a hurry, Baby, then you go first. Let's get together another day. At this time, Feng Jinglong was unhappy. He hadn't drunk enough yet. He sneered and said, You can't afford to drink. If you can't afford to drink, then don't. Next time you find an actress, remember to find a better drinker. Gu Xining didn't bother to pay attention to Feng Jinglong. She also knew that Feng Jinglong had always been like this. Chiu Kai also wanted to say a few words. Who knew that after Lei glared at him, he became obedient. Although he also liked Gu Xining, because of the recent things that happened to the Gu family, he almost gave up. Moreover, there was still Feng Jinglong as an opponent. He had no chance at all. Li Xiang didn't have much contact with these people. If Gu Xining said to leave, he would leave. He didn't care about his face and so on. In the world of adults, face was actually the least important. In this way, Gu Xining and Li Xiang left space in less than an hour. Although they didn't leave on bad terms, their mood was more or less affected. From the beginning to the end, Liang Zhou was watching the fun. Feng Jinglong and the others were really boring. If they really liked Gu Xining, at this time, they should go all out to help Gu Xining, so that the poor mother and daughter would not be bullied by her uncle. But they didn't dare to do so. As for the man named Li Xiang, what do you still need to worry about? The Gu family will solve this problem for you. When they came out of space, the TV tower was more lively than before. It seemed that the later it was, the more lively it was. No wonder this was the wind vein of Chengdu's nightlife. Gu Xining said somewhat guiltily, I'm sorry I let you drink tonight. Aunt doesn't let me drink, but it doesn't mean that I never drink, Li Xiang said truthfully. He didn't have to lie to Gu Xining. After these few days of contact, he didn't feel that this girl made him dislike anything. Gu Xining didn't say anything. Li Xiang's words were not wrong. Do you think I'm lying to you? Li Xiang chuckled. Gu Xining shook her head and said, No, I know you just don't want to drink. I think the wine is quite delicious. It's just that my body was not good before, so Aunt never let me drink. Recently, my body has recovered, so I dared to drink for you tonight. But I don't feel anything after drinking so much. I must have been a drunkard in the past, Li Xiang muttered to himself. He really felt that the wine was quite delicious. Although Aunt never let him drink, he also secretly drank a few times. Gu Xining didn't know whether to laugh or cry. She still couldn't accept the fact that Li Xiang lost his memory. She said lightly, Anyway, thank you for tonight. It's late, let me send you home. Li Xiang felt that it was time to go back and said in a low voice. Gu Xining said thoughtfully, It's okay, I can go back by myself. You drank so much, I don't feel at ease going back alone, Li Xiang said firmly. This was what a man should do. In the end, Li Xiang took a taxi to send Gu Xining home. At the same time, Gu Xining called a designated driver to drive the car back, otherwise she would have to come back tomorrow to drive the car away. It was already early in the morning, Chengdu was still not quiet at night. Many places were still so lively, but the traffic on the road was much less than in the daytime. On the road, Li Xiang met many supercars. Sure enough, there were still many rich people in Chengdu. The place where Gu Xining lived was not far away. It was New Hope di Tentianfu on East Street. This was a famous mansion in Chengdu, only one stop away from Taigugu. Every living room had a large French window. Outside the window, one could see the wonders of autumn snow in Xiling and Huazhong Guan City. At night, one could overlook the gorgeous neon lights in IFS Taigugu, and various high-end parties and secret red wine dinners in the house. Gu Xining lived here most of the time and only went back to her home in Lushan on weekends. But recently, the atmosphere at home was too strange, so Gu Xining had not gone back for a long time. Not long after, Gu Xining arrived. Li Xiang did not know this place, but he could guess that the place where Gu Xining lived must be very expensive. He did not know when he could have a foothold in Chengdu. Maybe some people would say that as long as he married Gu Xining, it would be over. But Li Xiang was destined not to be a man who lived off a woman. "I'm here, you should go back early," Gu Xining said softly after getting off the car. She was indeed a little tired. Li Xiang did not say much and said softly, "Rest early." Then he got on the car and was ready to go back. He did not want to go home with Gu Xining after knowing her for such a short time. Moreover, even if Gu Xining was willing, he would not think about it. Gu Xining watched as Li Xiang left. She was getting to know this uncle more and more. He was more principled and had a bottom line than most people. He had always kept his distance from her, as if she was just a child in his eyes. This made Gu Xining feel a little defeated. When Li Xiang was far away, Gu Xining asked the driver to park the car before going upstairs. Recently, life was really muddled. She did not know when it would be over. Maybe she would be like this for the rest of her life. When Gu Xining and Li Xiang both left, in a Buick commercial car opposite the entrance of the community, a wretched man put away his phone and said, "Mr. Gu, your niece has gone back." "Where is that man?" a hoarse and low voice asked from the opposite side. The wretched man laughed and said, "Not together, he has already left." "Check him," the other side ordered directly. Chapter 1107. Li Xiang naturally knew that Gu Xining came from a wealthy family. Anyone could see that. Therefore, when Gu Xining said that she wanted to be his girlfriend, Li Xiang had always thought that it was just a girl who had not grown up yet. Therefore, Li Xiang decided to go along with her. He didn't think about other things at all, nor did he really want Gu Xining to be his girlfriend. It would be like a toad lusting after a swan's meat. Even Li Xiang himself didn't think that he was worthy of such an excellent Gu Xining, let alone other people's opinions. What did he have that Gu Xining liked? Apart from Gu Xining's so-called good singing. But could singing be used to make a living? He achieved nothing at the age of 30. He didn't have a car or a house. He was a courier during the day and a singer at night. Not to mention that Gu Xining didn't like such a man. How many women would like such a man? Even if they went to a blind date show, they would immediately turn off the lights and leave the venue regretfully as soon as the music started. Therefore, after Li Xiang understood these things, he didn't take it seriously anymore. Gu Xining could do whatever she wanted. She just took it as adding some fun to his boring life. When she came to her senses one day, she would naturally stop fooling around. Moreover, even if Gu Xining wanted to find a man like Li Xiang, would her family agree? After all, one could fall in love with anyone, but for such a family, marriage was a luxury. It wasn't something that one could marry just because they wanted to. However, these things had nothing to do with Li Xiang. Li Xiang was just playing with Gu Xining. He hadn't reached that step yet. No matter what happened in life, life had to go on, and it wouldn't stop because of someone's appearance. Last night at Space, Li Xiang drank a bottle of wine that cost a few thousand yuan. Today, he had to continue delivering packages. His colleagues at the express delivery station naturally made fun of Li Xiang. Who asked Li Xiang to suddenly have such a girlfriend? Li Xiang didn't bother to pay attention to them. They could say whatever they wanted to say. After a while, no one would say anything. At noon, Li Xiang went back to the bookstore to deliver lunch to Ning. At the same time, he told Ning that he had borrowed the money and told her not to worry anymore. He would return the money tomorrow. At the same time, he made it clear to them that if they dared to come to him again in the future, they should not blame him for being rude. Ning was a little moved. She wanted to say something to thank him, but she couldn't open her mouth. What she wanted to know more was whether Li Xiang went home last night or not. In the end, she held back and didn't ask. Today, Li Xiang was very busy. He had been delivering packages for the whole day. He had delivered packages to almost all the nearby districts. He couldn't help but admire these young married women's online shopping ability. Almost all of them were women, and it was rare to see a man. Indeed, it was the men who raised the family and the women who squandered the family. His aunt hadn't returned yet, and Li Xiang was still free. He didn't know where his aunt had gone or when she would return. When Li Xiang returned to the express delivery station and was ready to get off work, Gu Xining had already arrived. Although they didn't contact each other much today, and Gu Xining didn't say that she would pick him up from work, Li Xiang wasn't surprised to see Gu Xining. Li Xiang just saw the Porsche parked in the courtyard. Of course, his colleagues had also informed him in advance and shouted, "Li Xiang, your little girlfriend is here." When Li Xiang came to the office, Gu Xining was chatting with the lady boss. He didn't know what method she used to make the lady boss smile very happily, and she even praised her a lot. What Li Xiang definitely didn't know was that it was the effect of 2 bottles of perfume. Gu Xining gave the lady boss 2 bottles of expensive perfume as soon as they met. In an instant, she knocked on the door of the lady boss with money. The lady boss immediately called Gu Xining's sister and directly told her everything about Li Xiang at the express delivery station. Fortunately, the lady boss didn't know about Li Xiang's past, otherwise she would have already told her everything. Not only that, Gu Xining also bought milk tea and fruits for everyone, since she received help from others, who wouldn't be polite to her. Sure enough, money can make the devil turn millstones. Li Xiang, you're back. You're so lucky to have met a beauty like Cici. The lady boss laughed happily. Of course, she was talking to Gu Xining. Li Xiang, you're back. You're so lucky. Gu Xining quickly handed the freshly squeezed juice to Li Xiang and said, "You must be tired. Drink some juice. Don't you need to work every day?" Li Xiang had never asked this question before, so he asked casually. The lady boss giggled and said, "Who has money to work? If it were me, I would definitely not go to work. Isn't it good to eat and drink every day? It's so tiring to go to work. Look at how bad my skin is recently. How good it would be if I could be like Cici." Of course, Gu Xining knew what Li Xiang meant. He naturally didn't like her to be around him. She should have her own life. "I'm on vacation. I'll go to the company after a period of time," Gu Xining explained. She had never been that kind of pampered rich lady. Li Xiang casually said, "Then let's go." Everyone watched Li Xiang and Gu Xining get in the car and leave. Seeing that Li Xiang, who was wearing work clothes, got in the Porsche 911, the other colleagues couldn't help but murmur, "They are both delivery men. Why is he at the peak of his life?" As soon as they walked out of the door, Li Xiang took the initiative to say, "Today is your payday. What do you want to eat? Let me treat you." At least he was Gu Xining's boyfriend in name now, so he should treat her to a meal. At this time, Gu Xining said hesitantly, "Actually, I have something to tell you. Please don't be angry after hearing it. It's my fault that I didn't discuss it with you in advance. There must be something wrong. Tell me what it is first." Li Xiang frowned and said. Gu Xining said carefully and embarrassedly, "My mother wants to see you. She has booked a restaurant and is waiting for you now." "What?" When hearing Gu Xining's words, Li Xiang was stunned and had a look of disbelief on his face. He had only known Gu Xining for a few days. Even if he was fooled by Gu Xining to be her boyfriend, it was only 2 days. Moreover, it was just a joke. How could he meet her parents now? Even if it was a serious relationship, who would meet her parents after dating for 2 days? It was too fast, wasn't it? Li Xiang hesitated for a long time and said, "Gu Xining, did I hear it wrong?" Gu Xining naturally did not dare to face Li Xiang because she was in the wrong. She whispered, "I didn't expect it to be so fast, but my mother insisted on seeing you. I don't know how she knew about you. Just take it as a formality. I will apologize to you later. What do you think?" Li Xiang did not know whether to laugh or cry. He said, "Okay. Since you want to play so big, I will play with you. At that time, when your mother sees me, a useless son-in-law, she will die of anger on the spot. Don't blame me for not reminding you." Gu Xining did not expect that Li Xiang would agree. She thought that he was just giving up. She let out a long sigh of relief and said, "Li Xiang, thank you. Don't worry, my mother is not that kind of person." Li Xiang was really giving up. When he met Gu Xining's mother, he would directly tell her that he was 32 years old this year and did not have a car, a house, or a degree. He delivered packages during the day and sang in a bar at night. He did not believe that Gu Xining's mother would not be angry. At that time, Gu Xining's mother would directly put pressure on her. Would Gu Xining dare to continue playing? Li Xiang could solve this problem. The two sides reached a compromise again. It was estimated that anyone who heard of their absurd things would feel a little unbelievable. One really dared to call and the other really dared to go. No wonder Gu Xining dressed like a good girl today. She did not have feelings for him. Although Li Xiang agreed casually, he still had to be polite. He could not go directly in work clothes, could he? Therefore, he asked Gu Xining to send him home to change first. Then he called Ah Ning and asked her to order takeout by herself. He would not go back today. Ah Ning did not say much. She just said, "Okay," and hung up. In the end, Li Xiang told the bar to adjust his time to later so that he could rush over after finishing his work. After that, Li Xiang followed Gu Xining to Tongzilan to meet her mother. He really did not know what Gu Xining was thinking. Could it be that her family was urging her to get married, so she casually dragged him to go with her? When they arrived at Tongzilan, it was almost 8 o'clock in the evening. The traffic in Chengdu was almost paralyzed at this time. The traffic was so heavy that people doubted their lives. No matter whether you drove a Porsche or a Porsche, you had to crawl obediently. Tongzilin used to be one of the wealthiest districts in Chengdu. The people who lived there all had villas and bungalows. Sports cars and luxury cars were everywhere. However, it was gradually declining now. After all, the wealthy had moved to places like Mount Muma and Lushan in the south. In addition, the mansions in the city had attracted new elites and rich second-generation heirs. This place was not as lively as it used to be. The restaurant that Gu Xining's mother booked was a friend's private restaurant. It wasn't a high-rise place, but it was quiet and hidden. After all, Gu Xining's mother knew too many people in Chengdu, and she didn't want everyone to know about it tomorrow. It was a small courtyard with a Chengdu flavor. There were bamboos everywhere, and several private rooms were hidden in the bamboo forest. After the waiter led Gu Xining and Li Xiang through a few corridors, they walked to the door of the private room. Gu Xining signaled the waiter to leave, then turned to Li Xiang and said, "Are you ready? There's nothing to prepare." Li Xiang shook his head and said. Gu Xining laughed and said, "Aren't you nervous?" "Not nervous." Li Xiang did not know why he was not nervous at all. It seemed that he was not nervous about anything. If he knew that he had experienced everything in the first half of his life, he would naturally understand why he was not nervous. Gu Xining said deliberately, "It seems that you must have met other women's parents before." "I'm over 30. It's normal that I have met their parents," Li Xiang said disdainfully. Gu Xining was a little unhappy when she heard this, but she also felt that what Li Xiang said was very reasonable. She had no choice but to let out a long sigh and said, "Then let's go in." After that, Gu Xining pushed the door and went in. In the antique private room with a strong Zen atmosphere, a graceful and luxurious middle-aged woman in a cheongsam was sitting there quietly and drinking tea. The middle-aged woman looked charming. She wore a valuable pearl necklace around her neck and a jade bracelet on her wrist, which could buy 2 apartments in Chengdu, not to mention other jewelry. It could only be said that the middle-aged woman was really noble. She had been here for half an hour, but she was not in a hurry at all, as if she knew that this was her daughter's style. If the man had not told her, she would not have known that her daughter had actually fallen in love. She really did not know what kind of man could make her proud daughter fall in love with him. Although she had already known that the man's real identity was a singer who delivered deliveries, the more she knew about it, the more curious she was. Because this was her daughter's choice. At this moment, the door of the private room was pushed open from the outside. She saw her daughter smiling and walking in, but the middle-aged woman did not immediately greet her. Instead, she subconsciously looked behind her daughter. When she saw the man who followed her daughter in, she was instantly stunned. They were so alike, really alike. Even their temperament was so similar. She finally understood. Chapter 1108. Most people's temperament was built up with money, especially the graceful and luxurious temperament of middle-aged women. Anyone could tell that they were especially rich. After all, ordinary people couldn't afford to buy cosmetics and various kinds of maintenance fees every year. It was no wonder that rich people looked especially young. For example, those young stars on TV. Their peers were old and had white hair and wrinkles, but they still looked young, as if they were 20 years younger than their peers. This was the magic of money. When the middle-aged woman saw Li Xiang, the smile on her face suddenly froze. She stared at Li Xiang and no one knew what she was thinking. The middle-aged woman, who was Gu Xining's mother, was called Min Shu. She was a member of a scholarly family. When Gu Xining's father had nothing, she chose him and accompanied him to build up his family from scratch. Unfortunately, they couldn't grow old together, because the man died in a car accident last month. As a result, the Gu family fell into internal strife, and the orphan and the widow were isolated. After Gu Xining came in, she said politely, "Mom." Li Xiang also said politely, "Auntie, sorry to keep you waiting." After saying that, Li Xiang was still thinking that Gu Xining's mother looked very young. If he met her outside, he should call her older sister to be more polite. After all, women didn't like to be called too old. However, no matter what Gu Xining or Li Xiang said, Min Shu didn't respond. She just kept staring at Li Xiang. At this time, Li Xiang also found that Gu Xining's mother was looking at him, which made him a little embarrassed. Of course, Gu Xining also found that. Of course she knew why her mother was absent-minded. Because when she first met Li Xiang, she felt like she was dreaming. He really looked like her father, who had passed away. Except for the difference in age and height, even his temperament was so similar, so she was attracted to him. Otherwise, how could Li Xiang make Gu Xining, who was extremely arrogant, take the initiative to pester him? Gu Xining was afraid that her mother would scare Li Xiang, so she walked over and held her mother's arm with a smile. "Mom, what's wrong?" Min Shu came to her senses and realized that she had lost her composure, but how could she not? She greeted him warmly, "You must be Li Xiang. Have a seat, have a seat." Li Xiang sat next to Gu Xining awkwardly. Although he didn't feel nervous, his relationship with Gu Xining was just a joke. He felt weird that he had to meet Gu Xining's parents for no reason. He hoped that he could finish the procedure as soon as possible. "You haven't eaten yet, right? Let's order dishes first. We can talk while eating," Min Shu said with a smile. Her smile was very warm and made people feel quite comfortable. As she spoke, Min Shu called the waiter in and took the initiative to hand the menu to Li Xiang. "Li Xiang, take a look first. Don't be so restrained. Just treat me as an ordinary elder." Li Xiang responded with an embarrassed smile. He took the menu and ordered 2 of his favorite dishes. It was his salary. Not long after, everyone ordered the dishes. Min Shu asked again, Li Xiang, do you want to drink? Before Li Xiang said anything, Gu Xining said, Mom, Li Xiang can't drink. He's not feeling well. Oh, then I won't drink. It's not good to drink. Cece's father loves to drink too much. I can't persuade him to stop drinking, Min Shu said with a sigh, but she didn't feel disappointed. She was still immersed in the moment when she met Li Xiang for the first time. Min Shu could only drink tea. Min Shu ordered a pot of high-quality, Longjing tea before the Ming dynasty. After a while, the waiter began to serve the dishes. After all, there were only a few private rooms here, so the dishes were naturally served quickly. As soon as they started to eat, Min Shu asked directly, Li Xiang, how old are you this year? Are you from Chengdu? Auntie, I'm 32 this year. I'm not from Chengdu, but from Guizhou. I just came to Chengdu 2 months ago, Li Xiang told the truth. He believed that his age alone could shock Gu Xining's mother. After all, she was 6 years older than Gu Xining. Hearing Li Xiang's words, Min Shu frowned and subconsciously looked at her daughter. She didn't expect that Li Xiang was 6 years older than her daughter, and that he wasn't from Chengdu. Gu Xining didn't feel embarrassed. She said, Mom, isn't my father a few years older than you? Li Xiang, is there anyone else in your hometown in Guizhou? Will you settle down in Chengdu or go back to your hometown? Min Shu continued to ask. Li Xiang said lightly, There's no one in my hometown. My parents passed away when I was young, and I've been living with my aunt. She's also in Chengdu now. As for the future, I don't know yet. I want to settle down in Chengdu, but the housing price is too expensive. I guess I can't afford a house in this life. Maybe I'll go back to my hometown. What Li Xiang meant was that he couldn't afford a house because he didn't have enough money, so it was more likely that he would go back to his hometown in the future. Min Shu didn't care about it at all. It might be a problem for others, but it was a piece of cake for the Gu family. As long as Li Xiang was capable, it would be fine. Min Shu said politely, As a young man, you can buy a house anytime you want, as long as you have a place to live. What's your job now? Hearing that, Li Xiang finally got to the point. Auntie, I hope that I won't scare you in the future. I didn't mean to scare you. I'm just telling you the truth. If you want to blame someone, blame your daughter. Auntie, I have a good job. I deliver packages during the day, and now I can make a lot of money. As long as I work hard, I can easily make 7,000 or 8,000 yuan a month. In the evening, I also work as a resident singer in a bar. I like to listen to songs and sing, so I found this job. I just went to Jiyan Bridge not long ago, and I can make 200 or 300 yuan by singing in a bar for half an hour. If I work in a few more bars, my monthly income will be more than what I can earn by delivering packages. As long as I can work hard for a few years, I can easily buy a house, Li Xiang said in an exaggerated tone on purpose. He wanted to make Gu Xining's mother think that he was a frog at the bottom of a well, so that Gu Xining's mother would never like him. However, to Li Xiang's surprise, Gu Xining's mother didn't have any reaction after hearing what Li Xiang said. She just stared at Li Xiang with a smile. After all, she already knew what Li Xiang wanted to do. She just wanted to see what Li Xiang would say. If Li Xiang told her the truth, she would think that he was a good young man, but if he lied to save his face, her impression of him would be greatly reduced. In the end, Li Xiang told her the truth, which made Min Shu very satisfied. However, Li Xiang was a little confused. Gu Xining quietly looked at Li Xiang and murmured in her heart, I told you to act, so you better do it well. Li Xiang, have you ever thought about changing your job? Min Shu directly threw an olive branch to Li Xiang. If Li Xiang was willing, she could give him a very high platform. Li Xiang shook his head and smiled bitterly. Auntie, I don't even have an academic degree. What kind of job can I do? I can only be a coolie. Li Xiang, you don't need to care about the background of a hero. Academic degree is just a kind of ability. Many people just lack a good platform. Even if you don't think about yourself, you have to think about Cece. Have you ever thought about these things? Min Shu didn't want to hurt Li Xiang's feelings, but said so. Li Xiang really wanted to say, Auntie, I really haven't thought about these things. Your daughter is just making fun of me. Are you serious? However, Li Xiang could only say, Auntie, you're right. I know that I'm not good enough for Cece now. Even if you agree, I won't agree. So I'll think about what you said. When my aunt comes back, I'll discuss it with her. Well, I'm glad that you think so. I won't despise you because of your age, family background, or your job. I've told Cece's father that no matter who Cece likes, we'll support her as long as she likes him. Even if he's a street sweeper, we won't mind. So you can rest assured. But how others think of Cece and you, it's your business. You have to think about it carefully. Min Shu acted like an experienced person and said earnestly. Hearing this, Li Xiang finally understood what was going on. It turned out that Gu Xining's mother thought in this way. No wonder Gu Xining's mother didn't take his words seriously. It turned out that what he had done was useless. No wonder Gu Xining dared to bring him to meet her parents. However, on the other hand, Li Xiang was quite touched. In such an environment like the Gu family, Gu Xining's parents could be so open-minded, which was rare and commendable. Gu Xining was really lucky to have such parents. Li Xiang was completely defeated. He had no choice but to say, Auntie, you're right. I see. Later on, the atmosphere was not as awkward as at the beginning. Li Xiang still answered Min Shu's questions casually. He answered whatever Min Shu asked him. Gu Xining talked more in the end. Most of the time, she was trying to ease the atmosphere. Not long after dinner, Li Xiang left, because he was going to continue to sing in the bar. Min Shu didn't stop him and asked the driver to send him there. Gu Xining stayed. Cece, tell Mommy, are you joking or serious? I know you like him because he has the shadow of your father. When I first saw him just now, I was also stunned. He really looks like your father when he was young. But love and marriage are not a joke. The gap between you two is too big, understand? Min Shu said earnestly. Gu Xining stopped fooling around like she did in front of Li Xiang. She replied, Mom, I know. I can't say that I like him now, but I'll get to know him slowly. If I really like him, I'll choose him at all costs. Moreover, Cece, if you ask him to be your boyfriend at this time, what will your uncle think? Us orphans and widows are not his match at all, and Li Xiang doesn't have the ability to help us. I'm just afraid that your uncle will think too much and harm Li Xiang when the time comes. Min Shu's tone was very heavy when she talked about this matter. Since Gu Xining's father passed away, the group had been completely divided. The group built by Gu Xining's father was about to fall into someone else's hands. However, Gu Xining and her mother couldn't do anything, because everyone supported Gu Xining's uncle. After all, Gu Xining's uncle was backed by a big boss in Chengdu. No one dared to offend him. Thinking of this, Gu Xining was also a little scared. If it was true, Li Xiang would indeed be in danger because of her. She had no choice but to say, Mom, let me think about it. At this time, Min Shu sighed and said, I'm afraid it's too late. Why? Because the information about Li Xiang was told to her by Gu Xining's uncle. Chapter 1109. Gu Xining didn't think that far. Maybe she was just joking with Li Xiang at the beginning. Her father's death was a big blow to him. She was in a bad mood, so she indulged herself like this. That night, she was grateful to Li Xiang's appearance. He helped her when she was most helpless. Besides, this man had the shadow of her father. How could she not have a good impression of him? Coupled with the previous factors, she directly pursued Li Xiang and had a relationship that didn't start and wouldn't end. But she didn't think about other things. Now, she began to worry. Her uncle was so powerful. She and her mother suspected that her father was killed by her uncle. He even dared to kill his own brother. What else did he not dare to do? Besides, he had the support of a big boss in Chengdu. What her uncle wanted was the control of the group, which was the shares in the hands of her mother and daughter. They had also asked for help from the outside, but who dared to help them at this time? Therefore, they were almost at their wits' end. Therefore, her uncle couldn't let anyone disrupt his plan. Anyone who suddenly appeared could be a stumbling block to him, and he had to get rid of them. So, would Li Xiang? The next evening, they got off work. Unexpectedly, Gu Xining didn't come to see Li Xiang. Li Xiang didn't think much about it. He happened to be busy. Today, he was going to pay back the money for Ning's gambling addict father. This was also the last time Ning helped his gambling addict father. Today, Li Xiang had made up his mind to help Ning solve this trouble, so that he wouldn't pester her endlessly in the future. Therefore, Li Xiang didn't ask them to come to get the money. Instead, he went to them directly. The premise was that Ning's father must be present. They agreed to meet in a tea house. Although there were many people drinking tea here, the most profitable place was the chess room inside. Many people lost a lot of money here. Ning's father was one of them, because he borrowed money from usury after he lost. Li Xiang was stopped at the entrance of the tea house. This was not a place that anyone could enter. Those who could play cards here were gamblers and hoodlums. After Li Xiang revealed his identity, the two hoodlums took him upstairs. The inside of the tea house was filled with smoke, which made Li Xiang somewhat unable to adapt to. The two hoodlums were also sloppy, as if they were the number one in the world. Those who did not know would think that they had just won 5 million in the lottery. In fact, they were just some small hoodlums who ran errands for others. Not long after, the two hoodlums brought Li Xiang to the side hall. Li Xiang saw 7 or 8 hoodlums standing in the side hall, and 2 or 3 sitting on the chairs chatting. It was obvious that they were the ones who had the say here. In any case, they didn't take Li Xiang seriously. "Did you bring the money?" A punk with dyed blonde hair sitting on a chair asked without raising his head. Li Xiang did not bother to talk to these gangsters. After all, they were not in the same world. He weighed the bag in his hand and shouted, "The money is here. Where are the people in Ninghai? Put the money down and you can get out," the blonde said without hesitation. As soon as the voice fell, the two hoodlums came over to grab the bag in Li Xiang's hand. The reason why Li Xiang had to come was that he had to make things clear face to face. Otherwise, those hoodlums would definitely pester him in the future. Moreover, he had already expected that this would happen. Who asked these hoodlums to not talk about integrity at all? Since they did not talk about integrity, then let's talk about fists. Li Xiang threw the bag at his feet and punched the face of the left hoodlum. Then he grabbed the shoulder of the right hoodlum and hit his abdomen with his knee. Li Xiang was extremely ruthless. He did not give them a chance to fight back. The two hoodlums instantly fell in front of Li Xiang. In the blink of an eye, Li Xiang directly suppressed everyone present. The blonde wanted to speak, but Li Xiang had already approached him. He did not know when he grabbed the teacup from the table next to him and directly smashed it on the blonde's head. The blonde instantly bled. Unfortunately, he did not even have a chance to speak. Li Xiang was very clear that he could not reason with these people. He had to talk about strength with them. Otherwise, they would not respect him at all. At this time, the other hoodlums present immediately wanted to take action. When could they allow outsiders to show off in their territory? How could they continue to live in the future? Therefore, they had to beat Li Xiang down first. At this time, the muscular man who was wearing a short-sleeved shirt and a big gold chain sitting in the middle said, "Wait." Only then did the other hoodlums stop. The blonde who had suffered a loss scolded and said, "Boss, kill him. Get out." The muscular man with the big gold chain directly scolded. Then he slowly walked in front of Li Xiang and said, "Brother, are you from the underworld?" Li Xiang did not expect that the other party would ask this. However, he was very smart and immediately responded, "Yes, I used to be in the underworld, but not anymore." Who are you with? The muscular man with the big gold chain continued to ask. Li Xiang snorted and said, "You'd better not know these things that you are not supposed to know. I'm here today to return the money and solve a small problem. If you give me face, then we will all be polite. If you don't give me face, then don't blame me for being rude. I hope you have the ability to keep me here." What he said was really pretentious. The muscular man with the big gold chain already believed that this brother in front of him was also a ruthless person in the underworld. Otherwise, how could he be so ruthless just now? In the past, the most powerful person in Chuanyu was Master Zhao. Since Master Zhao went into hiding, Chuanyu became independent. However, on the surface everyone was polite. The real bosses did not have any conflicts with each other. After all, they had been following Master Zhao in the past. However, the muscular man with the big gold chain heard from his boss that since Master Zhao retired, many ruthless people who had followed Master Zhao in the past also went into hiding. Therefore, if you met a ruthless person who suddenly appeared in Chuanyu, don't try to show off. You should admit defeat when it was necessary and wait until you found out the details. Therefore, the muscular man with the big gold chain was so polite. Listen to what you said. We want money, not life. It's not a small matter to kill people these days. The muscular man with the big gold chain said happily. Then he ordered his subordinates, "Go and bring Ning Hai here." After that, he sat down with Li Xiang and obediently poured tea for him. He smiled and said, "How should I address you?" Li Xiang, Li Xiang said straightforwardly. After all, if they really wanted to know, they would find out sooner or later. There was no need to lie to these people, which would save them trouble later. The muscular man with the big gold chain said, "Li Xiang, ideal, good name. You can call me Jinzhu." Jinzhu, this name was very suitable for a muscular man. However, Li Xiang did not say much. At this time, Ning's father, Ning Hai, was brought over. Before this, he was still playing cards at the table. This middle-aged man, who looked sloppy, skinny, and smelly, was still cursing. "What are you doing? What are you doing? I'm playing a big card." "Big your ass, when did you win money?" The gangster who pushed Ning Hai scolded. Ning Hai was wearing a somewhat tattered short-sleeved shirt and trousers. He was holding a pair of blue slippers that he bought a long time ago. There was no flesh on his face. His eyes were sunken and looked very ugly. How could such a man give birth to such a beautiful woman like Ning? "Ning Hai, do you still recognize me?" Seeing Ning Hai coming over, Li Xiang slowly stood up and walked toward Ning Hai step by step. After fighting for 10 hours, Ning Hai was a little dizzy. He frowned and said, "I don't know you. Who are you?" Slap! Li Xiang didn't say anything. He just slapped Ning Hai's face with the back of his hand. This slap could be said to be ruthless. It directly caused Ning Hai's nose to bleed. It also scared the other people present. They didn't expect this man to really hit someone without saying a word. "Do you know me?" Li Xiang squinted his eyes and said. After that, he kicked Ning Hai's abdomen again. Ning Hai directly fell to the ground crying and moaning. Although Ning Hai was more than 50 years old, Li Xiang did not show any mercy when he hit him. Who asked Ning Hai to eat other people's food without doing anything? He almost sold his daughter in gambling. Why should he be polite to him? Ning Hai did not dare to say anything. Li Xiang also did not show any mercy. He slapped Ning Hai's face again and said, "These 2 slaps are for Ning. I paid the last 100,000 yuan that you owe her. If you play cards in the future, the usury you owe has nothing to do with her. If you dare to find her again, you can rest assured that I will not let her help you. I will directly chop you and feed you to the dogs." After saying this, Li Xiang gave Ning Hai 2 more kicks. He should not be polite to this guy who did not learn from his mistake. After getting up, Li Xiang looked at Jinzhu and the others and said, "This 100,000 yuan, I paid for him today. If you still let him continue to gamble, I have nothing to say. That's his business. But if you dare to ask his daughter for money again, then don't blame me for being impolite. Be careful that you have the life to earn money but not the life to spend it. If you are not satisfied, you can come to me at any time. I will wait for you." When Li Xiang said these words, his body was really full of killing intent. Even Jin Zhu felt the breath of death. This feeling was similar to the feeling he had when he met a fierce person with his boss. That person had really killed a few people. Therefore, he was more and more convinced that Li Xiang was that kind of fierce person. At this time, the yellow-haired guy who was hit by Li Xiang's teacup at the beginning muttered, "Yo, do you really think that you are a big shot?" Li Xiang turned around subconsciously and glared at the yellow-haired guy. "What did you say?" The yellow-haired guy was startled. He had not recovered from the teacup just now and was suddenly threatened by Li Xiang. He replied with fear and trepidation, "I didn't say anything." However, Li Xiang was originally threatening the yellow-haired guy. Now he lacked a target to kill the chicken to warn the monkey. Who knew that the yellow-haired guy would be so reckless as to send himself to death? Therefore, Li Xiang still did not talk nonsense. He turned around and directly kicked the yellow-haired guy away. The yellow-haired guy fell heavily on the ground. This time, he really could not get up. After a series of actions, Li Xiang did not forget to give Ning Hai 2 more kicks, in case this old guy came back to gamble again. After finishing these things, Li Xiang immediately left. He didn't explain anything, and the others didn't dare to stop him. After all, their boss Jin Zhu didn't say anything, so he had to report to his boss about today's matter. Outside the tea house, Li Xiang let out a long sigh of relief. Today, he really forced himself to act tough. After acting tough, he directly ran away. Thinking about it, it was quite exciting. But why was he not nervous at all? This was what Li Xiang could not figure out. Thinking about it again, what was there to be nervous about? Forget it, he did not think about it anymore. Therefore, Li Xiang was ready to go home by bus. However, when Li Xiang just walked to the intersection, suddenly a Honda Odyssey blocked in front of him. Then, 3 men in black came down from the car and stopped him. Li Xiang's face changed slightly. What the hell? They found him so quickly? This speed was too fast. It seemed that there was going to be a fight today. It was just a fight. Anyway, his aunt was not here. Who was afraid of who? Li Xiang was already ready to fight. At this time, the 3 men in black had already walked in front of Li Xiang. The strong man in sunglasses in the middle said coldly, "Mr. Gu wants to see you." Mr. Gu? Li Xiang had never heard of him and did not know him. But his surname was Gu. Looking at the extravagance, could it be related to Gu Xining? Could it be Gu Xining's father? Chapter 11:10. Li Xiang didn't have many friends in Chengdu. Before he met Gu Xining, he didn't know any friends with the surname Gu, let alone Mr. Gu. How could a poor loser like him, who had no car or house, know a boss? Therefore, this so-called Mr. Gu must be related to Gu Xining. After all, they both had the surname Gu. Thinking of the fact that he just met Gu Xining's mother yesterday, this Mr. Gu today must be Gu Xining's father. But why didn't they meet together? Why did they meet separately? Could it be that Gu Xining's parents were divorced? This was very possible. There were many rich people who changed their hearts when they got rich. It didn't mean that men would become bad when they got rich. It was just that there were too many temptations in this society. How many men could resist them? Li Xiang, who had just pretended to be cool in the tea house, habitually pretended to be cool. "What if I say no?" "Then don't blame us for being impolite," the brawny man wearing sunglasses said sternly. The other 2 brawny men dressed in black clothes rushed towards Li Xiang. If they really fought, Li Xiang might be their match. But after all, it was Gu Xining's father who wanted to see him. There was no need for him to fight like this. At most, he could tell Gu Xining's father that no one knew what his daughter was thinking and he should go home and ask his daughter. So Li Xiang could only say, "Then let's go." Hearing Li Xiang say "let's go," the three strong men in black seemed to be a little disappointed because they didn't fight. Li Xiang really didn't know what they were thinking. In the end, they had to push Li Xiang to the car and leave. Li Xiang was also a little puzzled. Gu Xining's mother wanted to see him, or at least she had informed him through Gu Xining. Moreover, the atmosphere last night seemed to be very harmonious, so harmonious that he was a little surprised. Logically speaking, with Gu Xining's family background, if her mother knew about his background, she would never allow him to interact with Gu Xining. But Gu Xining's mother didn't say anything. It seemed that she was very supportive of this matter and was willing to help him find a better job. Now, Gu Xining's father wanted to see him, but he didn't go through Gu Xining. Instead, he showed up in such a sudden way. It was obvious that his father didn't agree to Gu Xining being with him. Then he would have a reason to get rid of Gu Xining. If the husband and wife had different opinions, they would most likely divorce. Along the way, Li Xiang had been thinking about this matter. No wonder Gu Xining acted so strangely. It turned out that she lived in such a family environment. Sure enough, the influence of family on children was really great. The Honda Odyssey drove along Renmin's South Road and went straight to Tianfu Avenue. They had been driving for half an hour and still hadn't reached the destination. Li Xiang began to doubt the identity of these people. Could they be the enemies that his aunt mentioned? It was not impossible. "Brother, how much longer do we have to go?" Li Xiang finally could not help but ask. He still had to go to work in the afternoon. He reckoned that he would have to ask for leave today. The brawny man in sunglasses replied, "We'll be there soon. Don't disturb my work tonight." Li Xiang continued to mutter. He didn't know if he could make it to the bar in time. This time, the brawny men didn't answer Li Xiang's question, as if it had nothing to do with them whether Li Xiang went to work or not. Their task today was to bring Li Xiang to the bar. About a few minutes later, the Honda Odyssey finally arrived at the destination of this trip, Chengdu Lushan International Community, which was also the most popular villa area in Chengdu at present. Along the Lushan International Country Golf Course, it was surrounded by more than 10 villa areas. It could be considered as the richest rich area in Tianfu New District. Any random villa would cost tens of millions, not to mention those that easily cost hundreds of millions. However, Li Xiang didn't know any of these, because he had never seen such a scene. Just by looking at the rows of villas, Li Xiang knew that this place was not simple. Ordinary people definitely couldn't afford to live here. Those who could live here were either rich or noble. Sometimes Li Xiang thought that although there were tens of millions of people in this city, there were also many rich people. Why wasn't he one of them? It was still very bright. After entering the community, Li Xiang only cared about the scenery outside the window. There were magnificent villas everywhere, golf courses, artificial lakes, and so on. It was really enjoyable to live in such a place. How good it would be if he could live here in the future. The only drawback was that it was too far from the city. Maybe rich people liked quiet places, and who knew how many mansions they had in the city. These were not what Li Xiang should think about. This was not what Li Xiang should be thinking about. Just as his mind was wandering, the Honda Odyssey stopped on a golf course. 3 big men in black took him down, as if they were taking a prisoner. This made Li Xiang somewhat uncomfortable. He did not like to have his freedom restricted. After getting out of the car, the 3 big men took him to the golf course. From afar, he saw a group of people playing golf around a middle-aged man. There were also several strong men standing nearby. These should be the middle-aged man's bodyguards. And that middle-aged man was no doubt Gu Xining's father. 2 big men kept him here. One of them ran to report to Gu Xining's father. It seemed that he was not qualified to meet Gu Xining's father directly. At this time, Gu Xining's father subconsciously turned his head to look in this direction, then gave a few orders and walked to the side under a parasol. Not long after, Li Xiang was brought to the other side. Gu Xining's father kept his back to Li Xiang. Li Xiang didn't have a chance to observe carefully to figure out what Gu Xining's father meant. But now he began to guess the Gu family's power. With such a luxurious mansion and beautiful bodyguards, it was obvious that they were not ordinary rich people. Finally, Li Xiang stood in front of Gu Xining's father. Now he could finally observe this middle-aged man. He had a small square face, big eyes, a high nose bridge, thick hair, and not too many wrinkles on his face. It seemed that he had taken good care of himself. He was much younger than his actual age, about the same age as Gu Xining's mother. He was wearing a polo shirt, khaki pants, sneakers, a golden Rolex on his wrist, a ruby gold ring on his finger, and was rubbing the gold ring with his little finger. At the same time, he was also looking at Li Xiang. "Are you Li Xiang?" "Sit down," the middle-aged man said calmly. Li Xiang sat down calmly. He didn't take the middle-aged man seriously because of his identity. "Even if you are Gu Xining's father, so what? I'm not asking you to do anything for me. It's your daughter who is pestering me now." "Uncle, what can I do for you?" Li Xiang asked with a smile. After all, the middle-aged man was an elder, and he should be polite. The middle-aged man said in a deep voice, "Do you know who I am?" Li Xiang wanted to say that of course he knew, but he didn't know why he came here with them. Was he so bored? But in order to keep a low profile, Li Xiang could only say, "I really don't know about this. May I know who you are?" The middle-aged man didn't know whether the man in front of him, who was 30 years old but had achieved nothing, was deliberately mystifying. He had been suspicious about the identity of the man in front of him, because except for the basic information, it seemed that he couldn't find other details at all, which made him full of doubts. "I'm Gu Xining's uncle, Gu Jiani." The middle-aged man, who was Gu Xining's uncle, Gu Jiani, finally revealed the mystery and said slowly. Then he smiled and looked at Li Xiang's reaction. Surprisingly, when Gu Jiani saw Li Xiang, he was not as surprised as Gu Xining's mother, who felt that Li Xiang was very similar to Gu Xining's father. Maybe Gu Jiani didn't feel that way. "Gu Xining's uncle, not Gu Xining's father? Then you should have told me earlier. I thought you were Gu Xining's father, and I attached so much importance to you. By the way, why did Gu Xining's uncle, not Gu Xining's father, want to see him? Did Gu Xining's father ask his uncle to see him, or did Gu Xining's uncle want to see him himself?" Li Xiang couldn't move. However, Li Xiang thought that it was good to keep a low profile. If he had said that he didn't know about it, he would have been slapped in the face. "Uncle, what can I do for you?" After Li Xiang came to his senses, he pretended to be calm and asked. Gu Jiani crossed his legs and didn't take Li Xiang seriously at all. He said bluntly, "What do you want? Tell me, what's your purpose in contacting Cici?" "Uncle, I don't quite understand what you mean." Li Xiang squinted and replied. He didn't like Gu Xining's uncle's condescending eyes, which seemed to despise him. Originally, Li Xiang wanted to have a polite chat with him, but now he just wanted to leave as soon as possible. Hearing that Li Xiang was still pretending to be confused, Gu Jiani didn't stand on ceremony. He glared at Li Xiang and said, "Cici's father passed away not long ago, and you suddenly appeared by Cici's side. What do you think I mean? Tell me honestly who you are, and what's your purpose in contacting Cici?" Li Xiang really didn't like to be questioned, especially in such a way, which was like interrogating a criminal. However, Gu Jiani told Li Xiang an important news. That was, Gu Xining's father had passed away, which was beyond his expectation. Moreover, it was not long ago. No wonder he always felt that Gu Xining was a little abnormal. Therefore, it was understandable that Gu Xining's uncle wanted to see him. It should be for Gu Xining's good. But it was a little strange. Why did Gu Xining's mother and Gu Xining's uncle have such a different attitude? After coming to his senses, Li Xiang took the initiative to explain, Uncle, I didn't know about Cece's father's death, nor did I take the initiative to contact Cece. I didn't have any purpose, because I didn't know Cece's identity at all. I met her completely by chance, and then the following things happened. If you don't believe me, you can ask Cece. Li Xiang, we are all adult. If I didn't suspect you, why would I look for you? There must be something wrong when things are abnormal. All coincidences may be inevitable. You came to Chengdu inexplicably, appeared by Cece's side inexplicably, and now even became Cece's boyfriend. How can I not suspect you? Gu Jianyi said straightforwardly. Li Xiang frowned and said, Have you investigated me? What? Are you afraid? It's normal to investigate you. Besides, your identity is very likely to be fake. Except for the time you spent in Chengdu, I couldn't find any other information about you. Do you think there's something wrong with you? And your aunt is also very suspicious. Gu Jianyi sneered. The way he looked at Li Xiang became more unscrupulous, as if he could crush him. Li Xiang became more and more uncomfortable. He snorted and said, Uncle, is it necessary to do this? Gu Xining is playing around, and I'm just playing with her. Can't you see it? Even if you suspect me, you can directly look for Gu Xining. Why do you have to investigate me? Gu Jianyi didn't want to talk nonsense with Li Xiang. He directly showed his cards and said, Li Xiang, I don't care who you are or what your purpose is. What I want to tell you today is very simple. I want you to stay away from Gu Xining. Young people should know their place and don't ask for trouble. Li Xiang didn't like being targeted like this. He also wanted to fight back, but he was not alone. He still had his aunt and Ning. So he finally chose to admit defeat and said, Uncle, I will say it for the last time. I didn't take the initiative to contact Gu Xining, and I don't have any purpose. I don't want to have anything to do with her, believe it or not. Since you came to me today, I will make it clear to you. Don't worry, I won't have any contact with Gu Xining in the future. I hope you can make it clear to her not to look for me again. I don't understand the world of rich people. I just want to live an ordinary life. After saying this, Li Xiang stood up and was ready to leave. He was a little annoyed and in a bad mood, because his life had been regular and fulfilling. Since he met Gu Xining, why did so many things suddenly happen? Especially in recent days. He didn't want to be disturbed, and he didn't want to have any contact with Gu Xining. Since he met Gu Xining's uncle today, he would make it clear to him and hope that Gu Xining would not bother him anymore. No matter whether she looks for you or not, you just need to do your job. I will believe what you said for the time being, and I hope you can do what you said. Don't go back on your words. Otherwise, don't blame me for being rude, Gu Jianyi said in a condescending manner and didn't look at Li Xiang at all. Li Xiang was about to leave, but who knew that at this time, Gu Jianyi added at the end, I heard that your aunt is very beautiful. Suddenly, the atmosphere was frozen at this moment. Li Xiang didn't expect that Gu Jianyi would say such a thing. It was a threat, a naked threat. Li Xiang's eyes instantly dimmed. At this moment, it seemed that his brain didn't belong to him, and his whole aura completely changed, as if he had become a different person. He said with a murderous look, What if I say I won't leave? Gu Jianyi didn't expect that Li Xiang would say such a thing. At the same time, he also felt that the atmosphere was not right. He looked at Li Xiang subconsciously, only to feel that the man in front of him suddenly became a little strange, not as ordinary as he was a moment ago. His whole temperament and aura had changed. Even Gu Jianyi felt a little scared. This feeling was really weird. However, Gu Jianyi felt that Li Xiang was thinking too much. He was just an ordinary nobody. What kind of waves could he stir up? Not to mention, he had the support of that big shot behind him. Even if Li Xiang came prepared, and there were other people behind him, Gu Jianyi had nothing to fear. So Gu Jianyi stared at Li Xiang and said, Young man, isn't it good to be alive? Why do you want to die? Chapter 11:11. Isn't it true? To Gu Jiani, he had seen too many reckless youths over the years. Many of them were like shooting stars falling from the sky. It was even more so in the past few years. It wasn't until Master Zhao's appearance that Chuanyu finally calmed down. There were too many legends about Master Zhao, but these legends faded into obscurity. Gu Jiani had met him twice a few years ago, and after that, Master Zhao completely disappeared. However, Gu Jiani knew that these big shots in Sichuan and Chongqing, which one of them didn't follow Master Zhao's footsteps to start their business. But Li Xiang was already in his 30s, why was he still so eager to die? Just like what he said, was it not good to be alive? No wonder he had achieved nothing in his 30s. Acting cool without strength was definitely stupid, not to mention acting cool in front of a powerful big shot, who would kill you at any moment. This was called nipping the seeds of danger in the cradle, not letting them become an uncontrollable time bomb in the end. There was another possibility, and that was that Li Xiang really did have an ulterior motive for touching Gu Xining, which was why he was so fearless. The atmosphere suddenly became tense. Li Xiang's sudden counterattack surprised everyone present, but Gu Jiani still didn't take him seriously. He just treated the young man in front of him seriously again. He really wanted to know what Li Xiang wanted to do. After hearing Gu Jiani's words, Li Xiang fell into deep thought, but his aura was still strong, and his eyes were still sharp. He stared at Gu Jiani without any retreat. Suddenly, Li Xiang's aura disappeared. He came back to his senses, smiled at Gu Jiani strangely, and then turned around, ready to leave. Gu Jiani's 2 bodyguards directly blocked Li Xiang's way. What kind of place was this? How could he come and go as he pleased? Without Gu Jiani's order, they would never let Li Xiang leave so easily. There must be a price to pay for provoking a big shot. After all, a big shot's face was more valuable than anything else. Get out of my way! Li Xiang snorted. The 2 bodyguards didn't move, and were even more serious, ready to take action at any time. At this time, Gu Jiani chuckled and said, "Let him go." Hearing this, the 2 bodyguards took 2 steps back. Li Xiang didn't hesitate and left without looking back. Just like that, everyone watched as Li Xiang left. However, they felt that this man's back was a little weathered, and when they thought about his aura just now, they couldn't help but feel that he might really be a terrifying character. "Boss, let him go just like that. This Li Xiang is not simple," a middle-aged man beside Gu Jiani said faintly. His name was Li Hui, and he was Gu Jiani's assistant. Usually, he helped Gu Jiani deal with all kinds of things. This time, during the internal strife of the Gu family, he did not lack in giving advice and suggestions. Gu Jiani said in a deep voice, "If you can see it, how can I not see it? There's definitely something wrong with this kid. Since he's courting death, don't blame me for being impolite. Find a few people from old Ma's place to test the depths of this kid. Let's see if he's a monk from outside or a local monster." Li Hui lowered his head respectfully and said, "I'll do it right away." After Li Hui left, Gu Jiani's eyes were still disdainful as he said, "You'd better be an ordinary person. Otherwise, I'll make sure that you don't even know how you die." In this internal strife of the Gu family, as long as there were no accidents, he could force Min Shu and Gu Yongning to hand over their shares. At that time, the Gu family would be under his control. Moreover, this time he had the support of the big boss of Sichuan. What was there to be afraid of? After a few minutes, "What kind of shabby place is this? Why is it so big?" Li Xiang cursed in a bad mood. After walking for so long, they still hadn't walked out of this place. This place was really too big. He didn't know whether these rich people would get lost or not. Today, Li Xiang was really angered by this uncle of Gu Xining. Not to mention his attitude towards him, he couldn't bear the last threatening words. At that time, he really wanted to get angry because whoever dared to touch his aunt would be challenging his bottom line. He would definitely fight back with all his might. But in the end, He controlled himself and felt that he could not be so impulsive. After all, there were many people on the other side. Even if he wanted to beat Gu Jiani up, he had to find a suitable opportunity. Moreover, there was also his relationship with Gu Yongning. Gu Jiani looked for him for Gu Yongning's own good. As long as he stayed away from Gu Yongning, there would not be these troubles. Finally walking out of Lushan International Community, Li Xiang was in a very bad mood today. He didn't want to go to the bar to sing, so he directly called to ask for leave. He didn't care about the manager's scolding and finally hung up the phone. He just wanted to be alone for a while. Li Xiang was somewhat extravagant as he casually hailed a taxi and aimlessly strolled around the bustling city. He liked to sit in the car and look at the night view of the city. The bright and beautiful city seemed to have an inexplicable charm, always making him unable to resist exploring the darkness in those places. There were still a lot of fragmented memories floating in his mind. Some memories were getting clearer and clearer, some people seemed to be slowly remembering, and some things made him at a loss. He somewhat suspected that he was living in a virtual reality world. Was the man in his mind the real him, or was the Li Xiang at this moment the real him? Perhaps when his aunt came back, he would seriously ask her again, and then he would know. In the taxi, the driver thought that he was a tourist in Chengdu, so he introduced the city to him in Trump speak, such as where it was fun, where it was delicious, and where he could have fun. Li Xiang didn't really listen, but he still responded with a smile. The driver looked at the number on the meter, jumping more and more happily. This kind of big business was not encountered every day. He subconsciously had already regarded Li Xiang as a rich tourist, but he didn't know that this man had no car, no house, and no achievements. In the eyes of others, perhaps he was a waste. Finally, Li Xiang understood a lot of things. It was better to continue with the current trajectory of life and let everything take its course. He chose to go home. Gu Xining called him several times, but Li Xiang didn't pick up. He seemed to want to go back to his previous life and didn't want to be disturbed by strangers, not to mention there would be so many troubles. Ning also called him, but Li Xiang didn't pick up. He just wanted to be alone. Tomorrow, he would tell Ning that the money had been returned, and the problem had been solved. He just needed to work hard in the future and don't think so much. When the bookstore's business was better, he would hire someone else. After all, Ning graduated from Sichuan University. He couldn't waste his youth here, right? At the entrance of the community, Li Xiang paid the driver nearly 400 yuan. He had been in Chengdu for so long, but he had never been extravagant. He didn't expect that it would be in such a way. Now that he thought about it, he seemed to regret it. After getting off the car, Li Xiang was ready to go home and sleep. When he just arrived at the entrance of the community, he saw a red Ferrari parked at the entrance. Li Xiang didn't have time to consider whether it was Gu Xining's car, because he didn't see the license plate. At this time, he saw Gu Xining getting off the Ferrari. Under the dim light, Gu Xining, who was dressed in sportswear, slowly walked toward Li Xiang. But her hair looked a little messy, and her eyes were a little red and swollen, as if she had just cried, which made people feel sorry for her. Li Xiang just froze for a moment, then he didn't think much and went straight forward. Gu Xining directly blocked Li Xiang's way and said, "Didn't you go to the bar today?" "This is my life, it seems to have nothing to do with you," Li Xiang said faintly, and his attitude was a little cold. Gu Xining frowned and said, "What's wrong with you? Are you in a bad mood or did I offend you?" "Gu Xining, you are a fair, rich, and beautiful woman with a prominent family background. I am just an ordinary nobody. I don't have time to play with you anymore. Don't make fun of me anymore. I will pay you back the money I owe you when my aunt comes back. Let's not have anything to do with each other in the future." Li Xiang finally stopped, turned around and said bluntly to Gu Xining. Gu Xining didn't expect that Li Xiang would say such a thing. She was a little at a loss and said, "Why did you say such things to me? Nothing, it's like this. Maybe I will leave Chengdu after a while. Li Xiang could only use such an excuse to dismiss Gu Xining. Li Xiang's words tonight had a huge impact on Gu Xining. She couldn't accept what Li Xiang had said at all. Why did Li Xiang suddenly change into a different person and treat her so coldly and harshly? Although Li Xiang kept a distance from her before, he would never say such hurtful words to her. Gu Xining suddenly thought of what her mother said yesterday. Then she thought of the fact that Li Xiang didn't go to work today. It seemed that the housekeeper also told her that her uncle met a young man this evening. Could this young man be Li Xiang? After Gu Xining came to her senses, she immediately shouted, "Li Xiang, have you met my uncle?" Li Xiang didn't expect that Gu Xining actually knew it. She should have guessed it, otherwise she would have said it directly. He said calmly, "Yes, I have met your uncle. I think what he said is quite right." Sure enough. No wonder Li Xiang would be like this. It was Gu Jianyi again. He just wanted the Gu family's shares. Gu Xining was a little angry and said, "Do you think he did it for my own good?" Li Xiang didn't understand what Gu Xining meant and asked, "Isn't it? He is your uncle, of course he did it for your own good." "Then do you know how my father died?" Gu Xining shouted, gritting her teeth. When she finished this sentence, Gu Xining's eyes were already red and tears came out. She gritted her teeth stubbornly and looked very wronged. Did Li Xiang really think that she fell in love at first sight because the hero saved the beauty? It was just because she saw the shadow of her father in Li Xiang. She felt that they were somewhat similar in appearance and temperament, so she pestered Li Xiang like this. She, Gu Xining, was not the kind of woman who would fall in love with any man she met. "What do you mean?" Li Xiang said in surprise. This time, Li Xiang was a little confused. Gu Xining's words were very clear. If he was not stupid, he would naturally understand what she meant. Chapter 11-12. At Lushan International Golf Club, the main reason why Li Xiang didn't get angry with Gu Jianyi was that Gu Jianyi was Gu Xining's uncle. What he did was for Gu Xining's sake. After all, Li Xiang and Gu Xining were not suitable for each other, regardless of age or other aspects. If he were Gu Jianyi, he might have done the same. But now, what Gu Xining said suddenly made Li Xiang feel that things might not be as simple as he thought. More than 10 minutes later, in a food stall not far from the community, Li Xiang, who was in a bad mood today, was drinking with Gu Xining, who was also in a bad mood. This time, Li Xiang didn't say that he couldn't drink and so on. Maybe he felt that Gu Xining was a little distressed at the moment, or maybe he wanted to figure out what he wanted to know. Li Xiang casually ordered some barbecue, poured Gu Xining a full glass of wine, and took the initiative to clink glasses and said, "Now can you tell me what on earth is going on?" In the food stall, a great beauty like Gu Xining naturally attracted the attention of many men. After all, such a woman was a goddess that many men couldn't get close to in their lifetime. They naturally envied Li Xiang, who was sitting opposite Gu Xining, but they didn't know that Li Xiang didn't know how lucky he was. Gu Xining, who hadn't calmed down yet, raised her head and drank up, looking quite free and easy. She said in a low voice, "He should have told you about my father's unexpected death, right? So you think that as my uncle, everything he does is for my sake?" "Yes," he said it. "I think so too. Most people should think so too," Li Xiang replied truthfully. Gu Xining put down the glass and stared at Li Xiang with some grievance. "But it may be him who killed my father. He is my uncle, and I am most afraid of him now. Now he has done anything to get the group shares in my mother's hands. He is just afraid that your appearance will disrupt his plan, so he took the initiative to come to you to warn you. What's for my sake? It's all **t. Li Xiang was stunned for a few seconds and suddenly his eyes turned gloomy. "I finally understand." At this moment, Li Xiang's favorable impression of Gu Jianyi instantly disappeared. He also somewhat regretted that he didn't directly beat Gu Jiani up at the golf course. Not to mention that Gu Jiani used his aunt to threaten him. Just the fact that Gu Jiani harmed his own brother made Li Xiang want to dismember his body into 1,000 pieces. As for his bodyguards, Li Xiang really didn't put them in his eyes. Sometimes, if it wasn't for his aunt telling him to keep a low profile, he wouldn't be so cowardly. Then why did he want to harm your father? Li Xiang couldn't understand. After all, this was his biological brother. At this time, Gu Xining tied up her hair and looked a little pure. She said casually, "Everything is for the interests." His shares are almost the same as my father's. In the past 2 years, he has been in conflict with my father. Besides, the things he is responsible for have a lot of problems. I heard that he lost a lot of money in Macau. That's why he did this. No wonder, Li Xiang said thoughtfully. Then are you and your mother in danger? Gu Xining shook her head and sighed. I don't think he will do anything to us, but he has been forcing us to sell our shares to him at a low price. But my mother and I are unwilling. This is my father's family business. How can we give it to him? At present, we are still struggling to hold on. If we really can't do it, then we will talk about it. After all, he has the support of a big shot behind him. The support of a big shot. Li Xiang's face changed slightly. When saying this, Gu Xining suddenly felt a little helpless. She said, "It's a person that we can't afford to offend. Otherwise, how can my uncle be so unscrupulous? But you can rest assured that from tomorrow on, I won't pester you anymore. You don't have to worry about anything. These things have nothing to do with you. I have thought it through." What do you mean? Li Xiang asked deliberately. Gu Xining drank a glass of wine and said, "Nothing. These things have nothing to do with you. If something happens to you because of me, I will blame myself more. I didn't expect that he would interfere in my private life." If it was before, even if Gu Xining didn't say these things, Li Xiang would not talk to Gu Xining in the future. But now Li Xiang changed his mind. "I'm your boyfriend, how could I abandon you at this time?" Li Xiang said in a powerful voice. Hearing this, Gu Xining was stunned for a few seconds. Then she felt a little moved. In the end, she didn't know whether to laugh or cry. She said, "Uncle, stop it. Do you really take it seriously? I was just joking with you. You don't really think that I like you, do you?" There were some things that Li Xiang didn't understand. Gu Xining met so many people every day. Why did she suddenly meet him? It might be because of the episode that night, or it might be because of other reasons. But after Gu Xining explained it to Li Xiang understood. Gu Xining explained with a smile, "Actually, I am very grateful to meet you. After my father passed away, I was in a bad mood. I drank wine almost every day. Thanks to you that day, I didn't have an accident. There are several reasons why I pestered you. One is that I wanted to thank you in person. Another is that you sing better. Secondly, I feel that you are like a mystery. I can't help but want to unravel the mystery. The last and most important reason is that you are somewhat similar to my father in both appearance and temperament." After hearing this, Li Xiang was a little surprised. He could understand the reasons at the beginning, but he was a little confused about the last one. He frowned and said, "You said that I look a little like your father?" Gu Xining thought that Li Xiang was lying to her, so she turned on her phone and showed her father's photo to Li Xiang. She said, "Do you think so?" Li Xiang held the phone and looked at it for a few seconds. The kind-looking middle-aged man in the photo did look a little like him, but it was hard to tell if one didn't look carefully. Maybe Gu Xining missed her father so much that she thought they looked alike. Otherwise, why didn't Gu Jiani think so when they were at Lushan International Golf Club today? After all, he was his brother. "Do you believe me now?" Gu Xining smiled. Li Xiang nodded silently. Gu Xining continued, "So I won't pester you anymore. It's time for me to move on." Li Xiang seemed to get to know Gu Xining all over again. He felt that she was not what he thought she was. In fact, she was really kind. She took the initiative to say these things now to protect him. This made Li Xiang want to protect her even more. He didn't want to see her being bullied and wronged. Therefore, Li Xiang said, "But I kind of like you now." Gu Xining was stunned for a few seconds when she heard this. Then she didn't know whether to laugh or cry. She said, "Li Xiang, stop it." "It's true," Li Xiang insisted. He really wanted to play with Gu Jiani. Anyway, life in Chengdu was boring. Moreover, Gu Xining had said that Gu Jiani was supported by a big shot, so no one would be willing to help her. Was he just going to watch? If he hadn't met Gu Xining, these things would have nothing to do with him. But now that he had met them, he wanted to meddle in their business. In particular, Gu Jiani used his aunt to threaten him today, which made him very unhappy. Gu Xining was not silly. She was a top student at Sichuan University. How could she not understand why Li Xiang suddenly changed his attitude? She was a little moved and said, "Li Xiang, I know you want to help me, but there are some things that you can't help with. I don't want to drag you down. I'm not helping you. I just want to vent my anger. Because he used my aunt to threaten me today, I won't allow anyone to do this," Li Xiang said, gnashing his teeth. Gu Xining was very clear about Li Xiang's character. Moreover, she didn't want to say goodbye to Li Xiang in this way. So she gnashed her teeth and said, "Li Xiang, aren't you afraid?" Li Xiang drank a glass of wine and looked up at the night sky. His eyes were a little gloomy. After hesitating for a few seconds, he suddenly said playfully, "Recently, I seem to think of a lot of things in the past. If those things in the past are true, I am really not afraid of your uncle. I want to meet the big shot behind him. Moreover, I have died several times in the past." Gu Xining didn't know whether what Li Xiang said was true or not. She found it funny and said, "Li Xiang, what kind of person were you in the past?" Li Xiang said unhurriedly, "You will know in the future." Gu Xining poured 2 glasses of wine and said, "I hope you will regain your memory soon." After drinking, Li Xiang said, "From now on, we are friends. No matter what happens, you can call me at any time, especially your uncle. Of course, to others, you can continue to say that I am your boyfriend." Okay. Gu Xining didn't refuse. Although she knew that Li Xiang couldn't help her, she was very touched by his kindness. As for other things, she didn't want to think about it anymore. After chatting and drinking, Gu Xining asked the designated driver to go back. Li Xiang also went home to rest. The next morning, when Li Xiang came out of the community and rode his beloved motorcycle to the express delivery station to work, he obviously found that someone was following him. If he was not mistaken, it must be someone sent by Gu Xining's uncle. It seemed that this man was really a man of his word, then let him continue to follow him. Li Xiang worked for a whole day. The person sent by Gu Xining's uncle followed Li Xiang for a whole day. He was really not tired. At noon, Li Xiang went back to the bookstore and talked with Ning for a while. He also told Ning about what had happened yesterday, so that Ning could be completely relieved. At the same time, he reminded Ning to be careful of strangers wandering around the bookstore recently. He was also afraid that they would hurt Ning. In the evening, they got off work. As expected, Gu Xining appeared at the gate of the express station. Under the envious eyes of all his colleagues, Li Xiang sat in Gu Xining's Ferrari. This time, he took the initiative to ask Gu Xining to come. To put it bluntly, he wanted to show Gu Xining's uncle that from today on, he would protect Gu Xining. "Do whatever you want." As expected, when they drove away, the 2 men who had been following Li Xiang immediately reported the situation to Gu Jiani. They said that Li Xiang didn't stay away from Gu Xining, but continued to stay with Gu Xining and seemed to be very intimate with her. On the top floor of a building in Chengdu Tianfu New District. After hearing the news, Gu Jiani said, "You are so reckless. I will make you pay for it." Chapter 11:13. A trip to Mount Qingqing. Was inexplicably involved in the internal strife of the Gu family, but he did not run away. Instead, he chose to stand on the side of the helpless Gu Xining. Gu Jinni even dared to kill his own brother. Li Xiang was really afraid that he would harm Gu Xining. Moreover, this old thing dared to threaten him. Li Xiang could not bear it anymore. As for how Gu Jinni would treat him, Li Xiang did not take it seriously. It was nothing more than those dirty tricks. He would just wait and see. Gu Jinni asked him to stay away from Gu Xining, but Li Xiang insisted on staying with Gu Xining. From today on, he would not leave Gu Xining's side. He planned to go to the express delivery station tomorrow and ask the boss for a period of time. During this period, he would follow Gu Xining and get to know the city well. But at night, he would go to the bar to sing. After all, it was easier to make money singing in the bar. He just sang every day. It was not as tiring as working in the express delivery station. In the end, he would not make as much as singing in the bar. But not everyone could eat this bowl of rice. At least in this bar, there were more and more fans of Li Xiang, including many beautiful girls. But the appearance of Gu Xining made others give up the idea. Now everyone knew that Gu Xining was Li Xiang's girlfriend, and it was said that she was a very rich, fair, and beautiful girl. Li Xiang already had such a girlfriend. Would he have any ideas about other people? Besides, other people did not have the courage to steal his girlfriend. The next day, at the express delivery station, Li Xiang asked the boss's wife for a leave. He said that he could not come to work recently because of some things. When the express delivery station still needed people, he would come to work at that time. After all, Li Xiang was not the boss. He could not come and go as he pleased. He had to see if the boss needed people or not. Li Xiang knew this rule. Moreover, he felt that this job was actually meaningless to him. He was waiting for his aunt to come back to discuss his resignation. The boss's wife understood what Li Xiang meant. She was surprised and said, "Li Xiang, what's wrong? Are you going to quit? Are you feeling too tired? Do you want me to give you something easier to do?" In fact, when Li Xiang came, whether it was the boss, the lady boss, or the other workers at the station, they all felt that Li Xiang would not stay here for long. Moreover, they felt that a man like Li Xiang should not work here. This was not the place for him. Therefore, they knew that Li Xiang would leave sooner or later. Gu Xining's appearance hastened Li Xiang's departure. They were all guessing when Li Xiang would resign, but they didn't expect it to happen so soon. "Madam, that's not the reason. I really have some things to do. I'll come back after I'm done with them. If you don't mind," Li Xiang explained with a smile. He was just being polite. The lady boss was really reluctant to let Li Xiang leave. After all, Li Xiang was the most handsome person here. However, she also thought that Li Xiang couldn't work here for a lifetime. Sooner or later, he would leave, but when the time came, she was still a little reluctant. "All right, I know I can't make you stay. Tell me when you want to come back. This will always be your maiden home," the lady boss said with grievance. She would be so sad if she thought that she would never see Li Xiang again. After Li Xiang walked out of the lady boss's office, he said goodbye to the other workers at the station. Huang Su heard it and said, "Boy, you've been hiding so much. We knew that you would leave sooner or later. I guess you came here to experience life. You look like a boss. How could you do manual labor?" Li Xiang knew that they always thought so. No matter how he explained, they wouldn't listen to him. He had no choice but to say, "Brother Su, when I really make a lot of money, I'll treat you to a meal." "Okay, we'll wait for you. Don't fool us," Huang Su said with a smile. Li Xiang patted Huang Su's shoulder and said, "Don't worry, I won't. I'll treat you to a meal when I'm free. Thank you for taking care of me these days. Let's keep in touch in the future." "Okay, I'll wait for your arrangement." Huang Su laughed. Li Xiang chatted with Huang Su for a while, and asked him to inform his brothers who didn't come back. Then he left directly. After Li Xiang left, someone muttered, "Brother Su, do you think Li Xiang is a mistress of that fair, rich, and beautiful girl? Get lost. What are you talking about? Do you think Li Xiang is that kind of person? I think he has known that fair, rich, and beautiful girl for a long time. Maybe Li Xiang is also a rich second generation," Huang Su said with some confidence. Maybe he was the closest to Li Xiang and knew him better. After Li Xiang left the station, he went back to the community. His aunt was not back, so the house was more or less deserted. Li Xiang bought some vegetables at the entrance of the community. Recently, Ning might be sick of eating takeout. Today, he cooked lunch for Ning in person as a reward for this little girl. At noon, Li Xiang came to the bookstore with lunch. Ning was cleaning. Li Xiang smiled and said, "Ning, come and eat." Li Xiang was busy recently. Ning always ordered takeout by herself. She didn't expect that he would come in person today. Ning was a little moved and said, "Brother Li Xiang, what did you buy? Why do you have so much?" "What do you mean I bought it? Today I cooked lunch for you. Try my cooking. Although it's not as good as aunt's, it should be good." Li Xiang put the lunch on the table and said with a smile. He had cooked a few times before and felt that his cooking was good. But his aunt didn't let him cook, so Li Xiang didn't have the chance to show it. So Ning had never eaten the food cooked by Li Xiang. Ning was surprised when she heard this. "Brother Li Xiang, didn't you go to work today?" "No, I asked for leave. I won't go to work for a period of time. So you don't need to eat takeout during this period." Li Xiang opened the lunchbox and said with a smile. Ning was dumbfounded. "Why? Didn't you discuss it with aunt?" Li Xiang also wanted to discuss it with his aunt, but she had been out for so long and didn't even call him. Li Xiang called her several times, but she didn't answer. He suspected that she had been abducted and sold. His aunt was so beautiful. "I have some things to deal with recently. When I'm done, I'm going to change my salary. It's too boring to deliver packages, but I have to sing in the bar every day so I have some income. As for aunt, I can't contact her. How can I discuss it with her? Let's talk about it when she comes back." Li Xiang explained helplessly. Ning hesitated and said, "Why don't we talk about it when aunt comes back?" "No, it's not a big deal. Don't think about it. Just eat." Li Xiang didn't know whether to laugh or cry. Ning was always so worried about him. It seemed that she was more worried about him than his aunt. He was more like a little brother to Ning. After lunch, Li Xiang stayed in the shop for a while and let Ning have a rest. The business of the bookstore was as usual, especially at noon. Li Xiang sat at the door and blew the fan, reading and playing with the cat. In fact, this kind of life was quite comfortable. It was okay for young people to relax occasionally. If they lived like this every day, they would definitely be bored to death. Li Xiang had lived in the Sichuan Tibet town for nearly 3 years. He had long been tired of this kind of life. He thought that he would live there for the rest of his life. Therefore, whenever he met interested tourists, Li Xiang would chat with them for a long time. Therefore, he looked forward to the outside world more and more. When his aunt said that she was going to live in Chengdu, Li Xiang was so excited that he didn't sleep well for several nights. Finally, he could leave there. When Li Xiang was absorbed in reading, he suddenly smelled a faint perfume. Ning never wore perfume. She dealt with all kinds of flowers and plants every day. The smell on her body was the fragrance of flowers. Therefore, it must be the fragrance of another woman. When Li Xiang was about to raise his head, Gu Xining smiled and said, "The way you read is quite charming. You must have cheated a lot of girls before." Li Xiang heard the familiar voice and replied, "What do you think? Otherwise, how can I be your boyfriend?" Gu Xining said angrily, "Shut up." Today, she asked Li Xiang to go to Mount Qingqing with a few other close friends. She would just take it as a summer vacation. After all, Mount Qingqing was the holy place of summer vacation for people in Chengdu. Many people would go to Mount Qingqing on weekends. In addition, 2 or 3 friends would go with them. Li Xiang stood up and said, "Let's go then." Then, he went in to tell Ning. At this time, Ning came out and saw Gu Xining. She just greeted her indifferently. It seemed that she was not so enthusiastic about Gu Xining. Because she had guessed yesterday that Li Xiang must have asked for leave because of this woman. It seemed that Li Xiang had changed a lot after this woman appeared. Watching Li Xiang and Gu Xining leave, Ning could only pray that her aunt would come back soon. She was afraid that Li Xiang would learn bad things from Gu Xining. There were 5 people in total on this trip to Mount Qingqing, including Li Xiang, Gu Xining, Sun Tian, whom Li Xiang had met the other day, Liang Zhe and his girlfriend, who had reminded Li Xiang that night. Liang Zhe had already set off with his girlfriend and Sun Tian. Gu Xining and Li Xiang went directly to Mount Qingqing to meet them at the 6 Virtues Hotel. On the way to Mount Qingqing, Li Xiang was Gu Xining's driver today. Although he had never driven a Ferrari before, he felt that it was very familiar after getting in the car. It was so familiar that he felt it was a little unbelievable. He could only guess that he must have driven such a sports car before. Thinking about the memory fragments, it seemed that nothing was impossible. In the past, he had driven all kinds of luxury cars and sports cars. Most of the time, he let the driver drive. After all, he was never short of drivers. Gu Xining was a little tired and directly fell asleep on the way. Li Xiang drove very steadily, not so unscrupulously. On the way to Qingqing Mountain, Li Xiang felt that he was being followed. If he was not mistaken, it should be the people sent by Gu Jiani. It seems that sooner or later he will have to fight with this group of people. There is no guarantee that an accident will happen in Qingqing Mountain. When Li Xiang and Gu Xining went to Mount Qingqing, Li Xiang's aunt had already quietly returned to Chengdu, but she did not go home directly. She also went to Mount Qingqing. Chapter 11:14. Mount Qingqing could be said to be a summer resort for the people of Chengdu, and it was a tourist attraction for many tourists. Every summer, it was often overcrowded, and there were many high-end resort hotels, such as the 6 Benevolent Hotel, where they came for vacation this time. When they were about to arrive at Mount Qingqing, Gu Xining woke up in a daze and murmured, "How long have I been sleeping?" Li Xiang laughed and said, "You slept all the way." Gu Xining shook her head and smiled bitterly. "Maybe I'm too tired recently. But you drove steadily and I slept very well." Gu Xining was indeed very tired. She had just finished her father's funeral a few days ago, and the Gu family had begun to fight with each other after a few days of rest. Although she looked relaxed every time she went to see Li Xiang, in fact, she had to help her mother deal with the internal affairs of the company during the day, and she had to face her uncle's pressure. Li Xiang didn't say anything. He could understand Gu Xining's situation. Gu Xining would never tell him many things, because even if she told him, he couldn't do anything about it. Moreover, Gu Xining would think that these things had nothing to do with Li Xiang. Soon, they arrived at the Lushan Hotel. Liang Zhe had booked a suite, and he would stay here with his girlfriend for a few more days. Gu Xining, Li Xiang, and Sun Tian would go back to the downtown area in the evening. After all, Mount Qingqing was not far from the downtown area, and it would only take them half an hour to get there by train. Liang Zhe took his girlfriend and Sun Tian with him. In fact, no one had seen his girlfriend before, including Gu Xining and Sun Tian. After all, everyone had said that Liang Zhe had a crush on Gu Xining. But now Liang Zhe had a girlfriend, and he let his girlfriend meet his crush. It could be seen that he had already let go of this matter. Liang Zhe's girlfriend was An Yu, a very elegant female lawyer. She was a few years older than Liang Zhe, and ran a well-known law firm in Chengdu. Of course, this was also because almost all of her relatives worked in the political and legal system, which might be the reason why Liangzhe went to see her. And Yu was not very beautiful, but she had a good temperament, and looked very cultured, which made people feel comfortable. When Gu Xining saw Sun Tian, she joked, "Liangzhe brought his girlfriend out to escape the heat. Why are you being a third wheel?" Sun Tian was also unforgiving. She glanced at Liangzhe and Yu, and then at Gu Xining and Li Xiang. She said with some hidden bitterness, "It's my fault for coming here this time. You're a couple, and I'm not just a third wheel. If I had known this, I wouldn't have come." "I'm just kidding," Gu Xining comforted. And Yu was already very familiar with Sun Tian. She also said with a smile, "We are all here to play. It will be more interesting if there are more people. Don't think too much." With a few well-educated and cultured beauties together, they naturally didn't have to worry about quarreling and so on. Moreover, women were born to be familiar with each other, so it didn't take long for them to chat together. They talked about all kinds of topics that belonged to them. Moreover, their family backgrounds were similar, so they didn't feel that they had nothing to talk about. Liangzhe took out a cigarette, looked at Li Xiang and said, "Let's go out for a smoke." Although Li Xiang didn't smoke, he still followed Liangzhe out. Last time, he thought that Liangzhe was threatening him. Later, he realized that Liangzhe was reminding him out of kindness, which also made Li Xiang have a good impression of Liangzhe. Otherwise, Li Xiang wouldn't have refused Liangzhe's invitation to Qinshan City this time. In the garden outside the villa, Liangzhe handed a cigarette to Li Xiang. Li Xiang didn't refuse and took it directly. However, he was not in a hurry to smoke, but played with it in his hand. Although his aunt didn't allow him to smoke, just like she didn't allow him to drink, Li Xiang had tried it secretly. He had a natural sense of familiarity with it, and didn't need others to teach him at all. Therefore, Li Xiang guessed that he must have been a heavy smoker in the past. Coupled with the appearance of those memory fragments, Li Xiang was even more certain about this, but he still didn't believe that it was true. After Liangzhe lit the cigarette, he puffed out smoke and said, "I've been thinking about what Gu Xining likes about you. I still can't figure it out." Li Xiang didn't stay silent. Instead, he said half-jokingly, "She likes older men." Liangzhe almost choked on his words. He didn't know whether to laugh or cry as he said, "It seems to make sense. However, you're in your early 30s, not too old. It's just that you don't look like a man in his early 30s. You're more like a man in his 40s or 50s. If I didn't know what you do for a living, I really couldn't figure it out." "Do you like to figure people out?" Li Xiang asked. Liangzhe shook his head and said, "I'm not that scheming. I'm just interested in you. To be honest, I really admire you. I thought you wouldn't be able to hold on for a few days. I didn't expect that you're still with Gu Xining. I want to ask you, do you know what happened to the Gu family?" "Yes, I do." Li Xiang gave a simple answer. Liangzhe hesitated for a few seconds and then laughed out loud as he said, "Then I also want to know whether Gu Jiani has looked for you." "Oh, he is Gu Xining's uncle." "Yes." Li Xiang didn't talk nonsense. This time, Liangzhe came to his senses after a long time and said, Li Xiang, I really admire you. I really don't know what you're thinking. Are you a newborn calf that is not afraid of a tiger, or are you an indomitable tiger?" Li Xiang didn't say anything. He didn't think that Liangzhe meant to tease him. It seemed that Liangzhe was very clear about everything. This man, who was a little noble, was more worried. In fact, if Liangzhe didn't dye his hair, he would be a handsome gentleman. Otherwise, how could he coax Yu, who had a mature temperament, into his heart? As for dyeing his hair, it was because he lost a bet with his friend. A man should be willing to accept the loss. Anyway, it was only a month. Therefore, his father didn't want him to go home within a month, because he thought it was embarrassing. "Are you really not afraid of death?" It's said that Gu Jiani killed his own brother. Aren't you afraid that he will want to kill you? Liang Zhe asked confusedly. Li Xiang replied honestly, I am afraid. But this is a society ruled by law. I don't believe that he dares to kill me in broad daylight. You're already in your 30s. Don't take it seriously. Of course, he won't do it himself. I'm sure he will find someone else to do it. Even if something happens, so what? Gu Jiani has Godfather Ma's support. Do you know who Godfather Ma is? Liang Zhe said helplessly. He liked Li Xiang and didn't want him to get involved in this mess. It was useless to sacrifice him. Li Xiang shook his head honestly. Gu Jiani dares to be so unscrupulous because he has Godfather Ma's support. I heard that before Godfather Ma made a name for himself, Gu Jiani helped Godfather Ma twice. Later, with Godfather Ma's support, Gu Jiani's career became bigger and bigger. As for this Godfather Ma, he was just a small fry in the past. It was only because he got in touch with a legendary figure in Chuanyu that he managed to rise to the top. In the end, he became one of the big shots in Chuanyu. Li Xiang was a little interested and asked, Who is the legendary figure in Chuanyu? Oh, then I'll tell you in detail. Of course, most of what I know is hearsay. This legendary figure in Chuanyu is called Master Zhao. It's said that he has a powerful background and is very powerful. It only took him a few years to become a legendary figure in Chuanyu. These so-called big shots in Chuanyu were just following him in the past. However, Master Zhao got into trouble and went to prison. A few years later, he disappeared completely. No one knows where he went. The people who have seen him are getting fewer and fewer. However, the group of people under him became the big shots in Chuanyu. However, they don't interfere with each other. So Chuanyu has been very quiet these years. Liang Zhe explained in a very simple way. He said it with excitement, as if he was that Master Zhao and he had experienced what happened in the past. Li Xiang was very surprised and said, So powerful? Liang Zhe said with a smile, What do you think? Why has Chuanyu been so quiet these years? Everyone guessed that Master Zhao has always been behind the scenes, so these so-called big shots in Chuanyu don't dare to act recklessly. Otherwise, how could the two groups under Master Zhao develop so fast? I also heard that Master Zhao has a manor that covers an area of hundreds of acres at the foot of Mount Qingqing. He usually lives here most of the time, but almost no one has seen him. Some people said that Master Zhao has gone to travel around the world and doesn't come back to Chengdu often. Do you admire Master Zhao very much? Li Xiang asked. Liang Zhe laughed and said, Of course. Who doesn't admire such a man? After saying that, Liang Zhe came to his senses and said in a hurry, How did we get off topic? We were talking about you. Why did we talk about Master Zhao? So now do you know why Gu Jiani is so arrogant? It's because Master Ma is behind him, and Master Zhao is behind Master Ma. So I advise you not to get involved. Li Xiang said firmly, What if I insist on lying down? Liang Zhe was a little helpless. It seemed that he had already known that Li Xiang would do this. He could only smile bitterly and said, Remember to find someone to collect your body. If not, I don't mind. After saying that, Liang Zhe went back to his room. Li Xiang didn't go back. Instead, he wandered around in the Lushan Hotel. The Lushan Hotel was almost a standalone villa, which covered an especially large area. The occupancy rate was also very high in summer. After a while, Li Xiang found that the people who had been following him appeared again. Not surprisingly, they must be Gu Jiani's people again, which made Li Xiang somewhat angry. It seemed that he really had to meet these people. Otherwise, they would think that he was easy to bully. Not long after, Li Xiang returned to the villa. Liang Zhe was swimming with Gu Xining, Sun Tian, and An Yu. The beauties were all wearing very beautiful and sexy swimsuits, especially An Yu and Sun Tian, who were wearing bikinis. Their soft breasts, slim waists, and perky buttocks really made people unable to take their eyes off them. As for Gu Xining, perhaps because of Liang Zhe, she was wearing a more conservative one-piece swimsuit. They asked Li Xiang to swim, but Li Xiang said that he didn't know how to swim. Gu Xining offered to teach him how to swim, but Li Xiang said that he was afraid of water. So Gu Xining didn't insist anymore. Did Li Xiang really not know how to swim? He was probably more professional than these people here. It was just that Li Xiang didn't want to take off his clothes. There were too many scars on his body. Even he didn't know what was going on. His aunt had been using herbs to make the scars disappear, but the effect was not so obvious, so his aunt told him not to take off his clothes casually. It was also because of these scars that Li Xiang increasingly felt that those memory fragments were actually the first half of his life. They stayed in the hotel until evening. After dinner, it was dark. Gu Xining was ready to go back with Li Xiang. At this time, Li Xiang said that he was going out to meet a friend. Anyway, he just needed to go to the Jiyan Bridge at 10 o'clock. Gu Xining asked if he needed her to accompany him. Li Xiang said that he could go alone and would be back soon. Gu Xining didn't say anything. After Li Xiang left the hotel, he found that those people who had been following him appeared again. This time they were very close. It seemed that there were 3 men, and they were not easy to deal with. Therefore, Li Xiang deliberately went to the remote place, which was to give them a chance. Otherwise, how could he teach them a lesson? There was a forest in front of him. There were almost no passers-by here. After passing through the forest, they entered the mountain, which was a relatively easy place to attack. Li Xiang kept leading these men into the mountain. Maybe because he walked too fast, these men didn't keep up with Li Xiang after entering the forest. In the end, they took the opposite route of Li Xiang. One went east while the other went west. Li Xiang didn't know it at all and kept walking forward. At the foot of Mount Qinqing, 3 men murmured in the dark night, "Big brother, did we lose him?" The other one replied, "I don't think so. We have been following him closely." "Then what should we do? Keep going forward?" "Yes." The leader directly made the decision. At this time, a woman of unknown age slowly walked out of the dark forest. The woman's footsteps were very light, but her whole body was full of murderous intent. She sneered and said, "Are you looking for me?" Her words startled the 3 men. The leader was stunned and said, "Who are you? Are you a human or a ghost?" The woman shook her head and said with a bitter smile, "Even cats and dogs come out to join in the fun. Don't you want to die faster?" "What do you mean?" the leader asked. The woman didn't say anything. Just like a ghost, she suddenly disappeared into the darkness. However, the next second, the 3 men suddenly fell down inexplicably. They died suddenly and died with their eyes open. In Mount Qinqing, after walking for more than 10 minutes, Li Xiang waited there for the 3 men to follow him. However, after waiting for a full 10 minutes, he found that they didn't follow him. This made Li Xiang a little speechless. "Are they King professional? I am waiting here to kill you, but you don't follow me. What a bunch of trash." Therefore, Li Xiang went back to find them. It was not easy to get such an opportunity. How could he miss it? Otherwise, he would be followed by them again. Who could stand such a life? However, Li Xiang went back the way he came, but he didn't find these people. Seeing that it was getting late, Li Xiang was in a hurry to return to the Nine-Eye Bridge to sing. At the same time, he was afraid that Gu Xining and the others would worry about him. In the end, he could only go back disappointed. Late at night, in a mansion in Lushan International Community, Gu Jiani was drinking and chatting in the restaurant. Today, he invited several friends to drink. They were all his partners and members of his consortium. At this time, Gu Jiani's confidant walked in slowly and stopped beside Gu Jiani. Then he leaned over and whispered in Gu Jiani's ear, "Mr. Gu, the 3 men who followed Li Xiang can't be contacted. Something might have happened." Hearing this, Gu Jiani's face changed slightly. Li Xiang really came prepared. Chapter 11:15. It was all true. The woman who quietly appeared in Mount Qingqing and finally solved the problem for Li Xiang was none other than his aunt, who had just returned to Chengdu. She knew everything about Li Xiang better than anyone else, so naturally, she did not want Li Xiang to be stained with blood in Chengdu. Besides, these Tom, Dick, and Harry were not qualified for Li Xiang to take action. It was better for her to help Li Xiang solve these small troubles, and just treat it as a warning to others. Li Xiang went back in disappointment. These people who followed him were really useless. They couldn't even follow him. Couldn't they be more professional? It seemed that he could only do it next time. When Li Xiang returned to the Lushan Hotel, it was already past 8 o'clock. Gu Xining ran to him and asked, "Where have you been? Why didn't you answer my phone?" Li Xiang's phone was on silent at that time, so he had to explain, "I didn't hear it. I'm back now. Don't worry. Nothing will happen to me." Liang Zhe felt that Li Xiang was a little strange, but he couldn't tell what was wrong with him. He shook his head and thought that he might be thinking too much. It was almost time. Li Xiang, Gu Xining, and Sun Tian bid farewell to Liang Zhe and Yu, then left Mount Qingqing's Six Virtues Hotel and returned to the city. On their way back, they drove Liang Zhe's Panamera. After all, Gu Xining's Ferrari was just a two-seater. On the way back, Li Xiang was the driver quietly. Gu Xining and Sun Tian were talking and laughing in the back seat. Because Li Xiang was going to sing in a bar, Gu Xining and Sun Tian said that they would accompany him and drink some wine. Li Xiang just wanted to say that these rich and beautiful people were really too free. Lushan International Community. The family dinner of the Gu family was over. Although they had a good time drinking and chatting, Gu Jiani was not in a good mood. He called his confidant Li Hui and asked, "Still can't get in touch with them?" Li Hui shook his head and said, "I can't get in touch with all three of them. There must be something wrong. I guess something has happened." "How's the investigation on Li Xiang?" Gu Jiani continued to ask. Li Hui replied cautiously, "I still don't have any clues. No one in Chengdu knows them. They only know that they came from the Sichuan-Tibet border. But no one knows where they are. So I guess this identity is also fake. No one knows who they really are." Gu Jiani heard this, threw the teacup in his hand on the ground and scolded, "What can I do with you?" Li Hui kept quiet out of fear, not daring to speak. After a long time, he said, "Boss, Li Xiang is not a simple person. I think his so-called deliverman and bar singer are actually his hidden identities in Chengdu. I heard that he has quit his job and has been following Cece recently. So there is a high chance that he is coming for us." "What do you mean by this?" Gu Jiani narrowed his eyes and asked. Li Hui said honestly, "Boss, I think it's better to let Godfather Ma deal with them directly. Godfather Ma's side is full of experts. It's not difficult for him to deal with such a small figure. We really don't have any way to deal with such a character. What do you think?" Li Hui was telling the truth. However, since Li Xiang had come prepared, then he had to take it seriously. This time, he had obviously suffered a loss, and it was even more likely that he had already alerted the enemy. It would be difficult to deal with Li Xiang again. But old Ma's side was different. Letting old Ma handle it would save him a lot of trouble. Moreover, his strength was guaranteed. In the end, he would just have to give up some benefits and owe them a favor. As long as he could quickly settle the Gu family's matters, it didn't matter. Gu Jiani thought about it and hesitated for a long time. Finally, he made a decision and said, "I'll call him personally." Asking Godfather Ma to deal with Li Xiang was indeed like using a cannon to kill a mosquito. But it was also very easy for Godfather Ma. It was nothing more than killing an ant. He could just send 2 or 3 experts to deal with Li Xiang. Jiyan Bridge Bar Street. This place was as lively as usual. It seemed that it was lively all year round. Even during the Chinese New Year, there would be a lot of tourists. Therefore, to have a bar with a good location here, the only thing left was to lie down and earn money. He just needed to enjoy life every day. Li Xiang had thought about this for a long time. He was also very envious of the boss here. He didn't know that the rent here was terrifyingly high. Not every bar could make money. Many of the bars were losing money to earn money. It wouldn't be long before the boss changed. In the bar, Li Xiang had finished singing for half an hour. Other singers might have to rush to another show, but Li Xiang didn't need to, because he was only singing here. Brother Chow was very dissatisfied with Li Xiang's work attitude recently. Li Xiang had to think of a way to change his working hours to 11:30 p.m. In this way, he wouldn't need to ask for leave anymore. Brother Chow didn't agree easily. He just said that he would think of a way. In fact, Li Xiang knew that Brother Chow had already agreed. Li Xiang didn't leave after he finished singing. Because Gu Xining and Sun Tian were still downstairs, Li Xiang put down his guitar and ran to their booth. Li Xiang, did you graduate from a music academy in the past? How can your singing be so good? No wonder you were able to charm our family's Sisi, Sun Tian said with some envy. At this time, she had already become Li Xiang's little fangirl. Moreover, Li Xiang originally had that kind of uncle's aura. Li Xiang didn't answer. Instead, he said, "Pour me a glass of wine. My throat is a little dry." Gu Xining didn't want Li Xiang to drink. She replied, "You're not in good health. You'd better not drink. It's okay. Aunt isn't here anyway. Nobody knows. Besides, I just want to drink 2 glasses." Li Xiang laughed. Gu Xining didn't know what to do with Li Xiang. She could only pour him a glass of beer. The reason why Li Xiang wanted to drink was that those memory fragments appeared again when he was singing. There were more and more people in the memory fragments, and things became clearer and clearer. Li Xiang felt a little scared. He began to resist instinctively. At this time, Sun Tian asked, "Li Xiang, why are you named Li Xiang? Do you have a lot of dreams?" Gu Xining hadn't thought about this question. She just felt that the name Li Xiang was very comfortable. It was a nice name. Hearing Sun Tian's words, she realized that Li Xiang was a dream. At this time, Li Xiang said, "I asked my aunt why I got such a name. Aunt also explained to me. It's not what you think. Other people's Li Xiang may be a dream, but my Li Xiang is actually leaving home." Li Xiang, dream, leaving home. Sun Tian immediately understood and said, I see. Dream is leaving home." However, because Gu Xining knew Li Xiang's story, she subconsciously said, "Li Xiang is leaving home." As for who was right, Li Xiang didn't say anything. He just drank silently. The 3 of them didn't stay in the bar for long. Gu Xining sent Li Xiang back first. Sun Tian would stay at Gu Xining's place tonight, so Li Xiang didn't need to worry about anything. At the gate of the community, Gu Xining and Sun Tian didn't leave in a hurry. They watched Li Xiang walk into the community until he disappeared completely. Gu Xining always felt that Li Xiang's back was more and more solemn. What kind of story did he have? They went upstairs and went home. As soon as Li Xiang pushed the door and entered, he found that the light in the house was on. He thought that a thief had broken in. Then he saw his aunt sitting in the living room at this moment. Li Xiang was a little surprised and said, "Aunt, when did you come back? Why didn't you tell me in advance?" At this time, Li Xiang walked to his aunt. Aunt frowned and said, "Did you drink?" Li Xiang was a little embarrassed and said, "Just a little." Aunt didn't scold Li Xiang for breaking the rule of drinking, because she had long known that Li Xiang drank secretly. "With Gu Xining?" Aunt said casually. Li Xiang nodded subconsciously. But he immediately reacted and said, "Aunt, how do you know Gu Xining? Did Ning tell you?" "I haven't seen Ning yet." Aunt said, "I know a lot of things. For example, you have met Gu Xining's uncle and mother, and Gu Xining's father was killed by her uncle Gu Jiani. Gu Jiani is now making trouble for you." After hearing these words, Li Xiang was directly stunned. he said in surprise. Aunt, how do you know these? You don't need to know these. I naturally have a way to know, and it is not difficult, Aunt said lightly. The light in the living room was very dim. Li Xiang couldn't see his aunt's face clearly. He always felt that his aunt's eyes were a little strange. Thinking of those strange memory fragments, Li Xiang wanted to say something but stopped. He wanted to ask his aunt whether it was true or not, but he was afraid that it was all true. At this time, his aunt took the initiative to say, Li Xiang, do you want to ask something? Li Xiang hesitated for a moment and finally gritted his teeth and said, Aunt, recently I often dream of a lot of strange people and things. Sometimes I can also think of these things in the daytime. Do you think? Li Xiang didn't finish his words. At this time, his aunt said bluntly, These are all true. After hearing his aunt's words, Li Xiang instantly felt as if he had been struck by lightning, and his mind went blank. FPZW. Chapter 11-16. Chengdu. Here I come. Li Xiang had never thought that it would be like this. He had always thought that these things were just his imagination. After all, many people might have illusions, just like daydreaming. Besides, he had been seriously ill before, and this might be the sequela of that serious illness, so he needed his aunt to prove that it was really just a dream. However, he didn't expect that the answer his aunt gave him was that all these things were true. Li Xiang also thought that these things might be true. If these things didn't happen, how could they appear in his mind out of nowhere? Moreover, he had lost his memory before, so it was very likely that these things were his previous life. Otherwise, there was no reasonable explanation for this phenomenon. In addition, from many details, he felt that it was more and more possible. For example, the scars on his body, and the reason why he suddenly appeared in the Sichuan Tibet town and stayed there for 3 years. However, the difference between his previous life and his current life was so great that he couldn't believe that his previous life was so unreachable. If he told anyone who knew him now, they probably wouldn't believe that he used to be so brilliant and that his life was so dramatic and rough. Even Gu Xining couldn't believe it. After all, he was just an ordinary courier and a folk singer who would sing in the bar at night. Apart from that, he had no other identity. However, he used to be the only heir of a top rich and powerful family in Siju City, and the future heir of a huge business empire that he didn't even dare to think about, and the rest of the things that he didn't even dare to think about. At this moment, Li Xiang's world collapsed. He started to have a splitting headache. All kinds of memory fragments appeared in his brain explosively, more than ever before, so much that he could not accept it. These memory fragments gradually occupied his brain, as if the man called Qin Sheng had come back, and wanted to forcibly drive this man called Li Xiang away. Li Xiang began to lose his consciousness. He didn't know whether he was Qin Sheng or Li Xiang, and didn't know whether he was living in the virtual world or the real world. All kinds of illusions appeared in front of him, and all kinds of people appeared in front of him. They were all greeting him, asking him to come back, come back, come back. Li Xiang was in this state the entire time. Even though his aunt saw Li Xiang's pain, she was completely indifferent. She only silently looked at him as if this had nothing to do with her, because she knew that this day would come sooner or later. Once, she hoped that Li Xiang would take the initiative to recover his memory slowly, so that it wouldn't be so painful, and this phenomenon has gradually appeared. However, ever since she went to Beijing, she realized that she couldn't wait any longer. If she waited any longer, it would be too late. Therefore, when she came back this time, she wanted to tell Li Xiang, but she didn't expect that Li Xiang would take the initiative to ask her, so she gave such an answer. Time passed just like that. Aunt just sat on the sofa and quietly looked at Li Xiang. Although she was a little distressed, she also knew that this was inevitable for Li Xiang. Li Xiang was almost curled up on the ground, his whole body was drenched in sweat, as if he had experienced a serious illness. Until the pain slowly disappeared, Li Xiang's eyes also began to gradually return to normal. Not knowing how long had passed, Li Xiang finally got up from the ground. His face looked a little pale, and his eyes became more and more vicissitudes. Although it was only a short period of more than an hour, he seemed to have experienced half a century, or more, like he went through the first half of his life again. He sat on the opposite of his aunt again. His eyes were not as blank as before. At this moment, his eyes were very firm, and there was a kind of light that could even penetrate people's hearts. Was he Li Xiang or Qin Sheng? Perhaps only he knew. Li Xiang finally opened his mouth and asked, "How are they?" Aunt did not directly answer, but only said, "Whether they are good or not, won't you know when you see them?" Although Li Xiang asked in this way, Aunt did not know whether he was Li Xiang or Qin Sheng. What she was most afraid of was that Li Xiang could not accept these facts, and finally became insane. Now it seemed that the situation was good, at least he had accepted the past. Li Xiang replied very calmly, "Yes, whether they are good or not, what's the point?" Aunt still could not help but ask, "Are you Li Xiang or Qin Sheng?" "Li Xiang, so what? Qin Sheng, so what?" Li Xiang and Qin Sheng both existed before, so Li Xiang and Qin Sheng are also me, Li Xiang said. Aunt was a little speechless, and obviously, Qin Sheng was not Li Xiang. Aunt asked directly, "When will you go back to Beijing?" Hearing this, Li Xiang was not surprised. He hesitated for a moment and replied, "I will go back when it is necessary. After all, 1 or 2 days will not make a difference." After saying this, Li Xiang said directly that he was a little tired, and went to have a rest first, and then directly stood up and left. Late at night, in the city of Beijing, a middle-aged man could not sleep. It could be said that he was so excited that he did not want to sleep at all. When Elder Long's side was defeated again and again, the real heir actually became Elder Long's scapegoat. Now, he was even confined in Hong Kong, unable to return to China, and these players who originally had no chance of winning suddenly became the seeded players. However, it was far from easy to become the helmsman of this circle, and Elder Long would not casually give the power to any one of them. Everyone could see what Elder Long wanted, and that was the life of the only heir of the Qin family. This was the only reason why Elder Long did not want to die, otherwise he might have already passed away. When in Beidave, Elder Long had made it very clear that whoever completed this task would be the future leader. The middle-aged man had been working hard in this circle for most of his life, and now he finally had the chance to soar to the sky. Moreover, he had found the trace of that man earlier than anyone else, and this time he was determined to get it. Late at night, in Diaoyutai No. 1, north of Yuantan Park, this was a famous mansion in Siju City, and the people who could live here were either rich or noble. The Qin family also had a house here, but they hardly lived here. This was supposed to be Song Ryu's and Qin Sheng's wedding house, because it was closer to Song Ryu's workplace. However, Qin Sheng suddenly disappeared, and it had been 3 years since then. However, Song Ryu did not give up. She had long regarded herself as the daughter-in-law of the Qin family, so she renovated the house and finally lived here alone. She just wanted to wait for Qin Sheng to come back. The big mansion was a little empty, and Song Ryu was the only one left in the house, except for the 2 nannies. The 2 nannies had also been servants of the Qin family for many years, and were personally selected by Zhao Anji to take care of Song Ryu. Song Ryu did not say anything about this, as she had never cared about such trivial things. Late at night, Song Ryu was not sleepy. She stood alone in the study, overlooking the Yuantan Park outside. The study here was much larger than the one in her house. She had moved all the things in her previous study here, and the rest were Qin Sheng's things, many of which were things he had left in Shanghai. This seemed to be the only way to make her feel Qin Sheng's existence, and not feel so lonely. Some people thought that Song Ryu was stupid, while others thought that she was stubborn. Whether it was the Song family or the Qin family, they all tried to persuade Song Ryu, saying that Qin Shing might be dead and that she should not continue to wait. However, Song Ryu refused. She just wanted to wait until she was unwilling to wait. Today, she had finally waited. Just like that, she had waited for 3 whole years. Was 3 years long? It was very long, and every day felt like a year. Was 3 years short? It was also very short, as if it had passed in the blink of an eye. It seemed that compared to the next few decades, these 3 years were nothing. After a long time, Song Ryu stopped looking at him and said lightly, "Qin Shing, I miss you very much. I miss you very much." Chengdu, here I come, you're tuning in to the Phoenix Nights YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories.